Let's jump into it. Give me a little intro about yourself, since you didn't want to fill out your form, and I know nothing about you. So
You know what? Busy people. I got too much to do.
there's a lot going on.
A lot
I want to
going
hear all
on.
about it. So
Well, my name's Amanda. I think you knew that.
Yeah,
I think you knew that.
got that part.
Yeah, I've been in the industry for like 15 years, and I love when people show up and then they're like, "I really expected you to be a lot older." And
What
I'm like,
industry?
Firearms training, tactical. I started off in the military when I was 17. I ran away really hard and fast. And then I was a volunteer firefighter. I think I just realized that I had this big love for serving my community.
Okay.
I grew up in like one of those really crappy, poor, violent filled cities in a domestic violence home. And I originally wanted to go to law school. Realized that sounded like a terrible, boring life. So I went the other route to learn how to protect people. And I applied to the CIA when I was 22. I had a supervisor at the time. I was active duty. And, he'll probably hear this one day, but I don't care. He sucked. And he made my life hell. And we got into a fight one day, and he said, "If you don't like working for me, Amanda, then go work for someone else."
Done.
And I was like, great. I went on the CIA's website, and I sent an application because it made me feel like I was doing something about my life. And those sons of bitch hired me. They actually hired me. So I started when I was 23.
Oh, all right. I don't even know. Okay.
I know.
Where are you?
We're here.
We're just gonna start peeling layers away with this
Yep.
one. Where are you from? Where'd you grow up?
Long Island, New York.
Long Island. Okay, I'm an upstater, so we don't consider you guys real New York.
I don't
so.
consider you real New York either, unless you're in the
Really,
boroughs.
really. That's
You
fascinating.
gotta be in the hood to be from New York.
Nah, that's a shithole. So no, we get all the summer. All y'all come up to visit in the summertime on the Thousand Islands. So
I do love Saratoga. I miss Saratoga Springs.
I'm right on the Canadian border. It was the most amazing place, but we never venture south. So
Yeah, that's like going to Fort Drum. No thanks.
I'm 20 minutes north of Fort Drum. We had to deal with
Ew.
all the bum drums, is what we called them as kids
gosh.
growing up.
I
Yes.
bet we probably like crossed paths at one point when I was up there.
I would imagine,
no
yeah.
idea.
It's an interesting place growing up. It's beautiful, and my parents want us to go back so bad, but there's no way, not with politics, no way. And winters are miserable.
Yeah,
I don't
miss
I don't
it.
want to live anywhere where the Army does their cold weather training.
Seriously, like that's a red flag. You don't live there.
Huge red flag. Okay, so you grew up in the not so beautiful parts of New York, and you said you ran away at 17, or did you just join and you were like, I'm ready to go?
I just wanted I wanted out. I wanted a different life. I knew when I was like 12, I think I saw like Spy Kids, and I'm like, man, that would be so cool to, be like work for the FBI or be like a spy. And I based like all my decisions off of that. Like, is this going to get me to be a spy one day?
Okay.
So I didn't drink. I didn't go to parties. Like, I've never even tried marijuana, like still to this day. Cause I just thought, I'm like, okay, well, if I want this life, I'm the only one that's going to, build it for me.
I mean, that's a great mindset to be in, especially at a young age.
Yeah, I think I needed it. And I had a boyfriend in high school that, I have a really bad luck with men, and he was just kind of not so great and would call me a girly girl all the time and tell me all these things I couldn't do. And I had gotten a brochure in the mail, and it had like one of those obstacle courses on it. And I was like, this looks like fun. I could do this. And he's like, you could never do that. So I called a recruiter on Tuesday, and I swore in on Thursday.
What recruiter? What branch?
At the time, it was the Army National Guard.
Okay. How was that?
Which part?
And yeah, so let's start right at like boot camp.
Oh gosh, I loved it. I love the
Really?
structure. I love the challenge. I didn't have parents through my teens. I raised myself. So
Why is that?
my stepdad went to jail when I was 9, and love my mom to death now. But I think she was battling in her own ways, and she kind of left around right before I turned 13. So going into
Really?
high school, I just had to kind of figure it out. I almost failed out of high school when I was in 9th grade, and
So from 13 on, you're on your own?
yeah.
Where were you living?
In a house, but she left somewhere else, so she paid the bills. So I got a credit card, and
You were on your own at 13.
yeah.
Really?
She'd pop in sometimes to
Just check up?
to check it. Well, get clothes and see her frequently or infrequently. But it was a tough time. Like I said, we have a great relationship
Yeah,
now.
I've met your mom. We actually talked about her on the last episode.
I know, that's crazy, right? Actually, yep, I forget. So you wouldn't know that at the time, but
Okay.
it was a really difficult point in life, and she was dealing with a lot of her own things. We've come a long way from there, but yeah, at that time,
That blows my mind. 13 years old, and you were just
Yeah.
making it happen. That's what's growing up in South New York.
Yeah, you go into survival mode.
You have to down there.
You don't know anything else, and
Do you have any siblings?
I had have a half sister, but we never really had.
Okay, so you were it was just you in this house.
Yep. I had good friends. I had friends' parents that would definitely look out for me sometime. And then I have, I call him now my adopted dad. He had no relation to me whatsoever, but he loved me and kind of treated me like a daughter. He was kind of like an uncle, but would check in on me and kind of try to do the dad thing if I was dating somebody, take us out to dinner and grill him with all the hard questions, and definitely tried to be that person for me.
So what age, this is just hard for me to fathom that you were on your own at 13. What age did your mom come back, or was that like that all the way through high school?
That was pretty much all through high school.
Really?
My senior year, she did get married, and they kind of came back into the picture, but at that point,
you're like Lord of the Flies at this point, feral. So
like, you're not going to tell me what to do.
I don't need you. I've got but to this point. Yeah. So how was that dynamic?
It was hard. We fought all the time.
I could imagine that.
Definitely struggled with people telling me what to do at that point, because I was like, I've had to make every decision on my own. I mean, I didn't know where my food was going to come from. I remember a point in time where I literally ate Tums because I thought it was candy. Like, I didn't know. I was just so hungry, right? And when you come from like such a survival mode, and you don't know what household you're going to kind of walk into today. You don't know what wall you're going to get thrown into today.
Did you grow up in an abusive home, if you want me asking?
Yeah, that was the stepdad that went to jail when I was 9. So my entire upbringing was just that kind of environment, and that's why I think it's so important that I get to do what I get to do now with Athena, is because of that upbringing. I mean, when I was pretty much since 2 on, that was all I had known.
Damn, you've been grinding from the start.
From the very start. And I asked myself, and I asked God why for so long had I endured so many different extreme circumstances, I guess. And then, it all comes full circle, which I'm sure we'll get to talk about. But now I'm living my why. I would never be able to help the people I get to help today had I not gone through those situations on the physical side, the sexual side, the neglect side, all of it. And having to understand what it actually means to survive on your own, and what it means to make those decisions, one, not only as a functioning adult in society, but also as a woman who is trying to be in her design, right? Not be in her masculine feminist. Like, I'm not a feminist, and I'll tell people all day I'm not a feminist. That's not what I support. Yeah. But when you are a woman who's grown up in survival mode for so long, and you've experienced so much trauma, that's kind of the mindset you start to adopt, is I don't need anybody and I don't need a man, because look what men have shown me my entire life. They've shown me hurt. They've shown me pain. They've shown me, betrayal.
For sure.
So how do we move forward from there?
Wow. So you've been in the trenches.
Yeah.
And good for you. I mean, yeah, unfortunately, but I mean, we're going to get to where it's gotten you now. So your mom and new husband at the time come back, and you guys are obviously clashing. I can only imagine. I feel like anybody in your situation would be like, absolutely not. Like, I've lived my life to now. You're not going to come here and control me. Was that a big reason for you to jump straight military to kind of get out of that situation?
Yeah, I just wanted out. So 9th grade, I was failing out. I don't really know what was going on at that point. I didn't know how I was getting to school. I was bullied a lot after my stepdad went to jail at, small town.
Oh, yeah.
And I dealt with the parents who didn't want their kids around me. I dealt with the neighbors who were trying to say that I was lying about what I had went through for attention, for, my mom put me up to it so we could try to get the house, just a lot of crazy reasons. And that was my first experience in speaking up and trying to protect myself, and then how society still throws it against you and tries to create reasons on why it's your fault, or why you allowed it to happen, or why you're lying, or you're exaggerating, or you're making it up.
You're processing a lot of things at such a young age.
And I didn't even know what half those things meant. I remember things that I had experienced, at 5 years old. I was 13, 14, 15 years old, learning what certain things actually meant. And that was really hard for me to process on my
As in,
own.
what do you mean? What do you mean by that? Like you were
I don't know,
processing
like
and you were older when what they meant.
how deep does this podcast go?
As deep as you want to go with it.
Um, I mean, I've never really talked about these things before. I remember the first time I was outside in my neighbor's front yard playing with neighborhood kids, and I couldn't tell you how the conversation came up, but I remember I learned what it meant when a guy had a heart on. And I didn't actually understand, but then in that moment, I understood what I'd experienced with my stepdad, and I had tied the two together for the first time. And that was really hard understanding, not understanding what I had gone through, and then it hitting you like a brick in the face, understanding what you had gone through.
And I can. And then you have nobody. You don't have a mom or a father to be able to
help you process through that. And then you're just kind of holding this thing and this trauma that you've experienced, and now it feels embarrassing, and it feels like something to be ashamed of, and then you can't absolutely, which is probably why I've never even said this to anybody before, right? Because you're like, how do you hold this thing? And that
was it almost like a shame feeling at that time? I mean, obviously, I'm not saying you should be shameful of it, but
no,
I mean,
was.
I can only, and you're trying to process this as a teenager, a young woman that's developing, going through your own changes, hormones. I mean,
Yeah, and then it would start to get out in the community. And I remember I was in the gymnasium one day at school, and there was this kid in my neighborhood, and he corners me against the wall and just starts making these absolutely disgusting, horrific comments to me about, oh, you're the girl that, daddy XYZ to. And instead of having a community that made you feel safer, you were exiled and put down for those things that happened to you. So now you're just taught, why would I talk to anybody about these things? Why would I?
You're building a wall, and you're starting to guard yourself.
I'm not going to go out and reach out and get help, and you're just taught to feel like it is something that you did wrong. You put yourself in that situation, or you should have known better, or even though you didn't know better, you're just disgusting because it happened to you.
God, you went through every phase, I feel like, all on your own.
Yeah, and it didn't get better after that. I think when they say that people who experience trauma, somehow it keeps finding them because it's kind of like all that started to be the pattern, not intentionally. You think you're making better decisions, and I think about this sometimes, the fear of vulnerability of if people knew the truth about what I've actually endured, I get scared that why would they want to learn from me? Why would they want to hear anything that I have to say? Because we'll look at her. She's gone through all of these things. She's been attacked in her sleep. She's been raped. She's been molested. She's been.
Was this all from your, if you don't mind, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. Was this a lot from your stepdad or you being on your own?
Both.
Okay.
Stepdad, and then a boyfriend in high school. And then there's that, right? Well, you're in a relationship with somebody who's in a relationship with you can't rape you. Well, that's not true.
Yeah.
Then 3 different experiences on my deployment, and then fast forward these different things that somehow you keep finding you, and you say, I'm not going to let this happen to me again. I've experienced the worst of it. I'm stronger now. I know more now, and I'm never going to let that happen to me again. But then all your nervous system knows are those traumatizing experiences. So the closer you get to being in that situation again, your body shuts down. Instead of flight or fight, you go into freeze because that's all you were taught to know. So then now you think that you're powerful. You think that you can defend yourself. You think that you're just going to default into kicking and screaming and fighting for your life. But all you have been taught to do is fear what's going to happen if you try to defend yourself.
The more, and I'm just asking this, the more it happens, then it becomes a quicker response. You just freeze to get it over, kind of, in a way.
Yeah, it's.
And if I ask any questions, just please tell
fine.
me to fuck off. So,
it's. There's both sides to it. There's the fear of what's going to happen. There's the fear of what's not going to happen. There's the fear of knowing no one's going to believe you, even if you try to do something about it.
Because you were doubted as a child so much, and that's what built that.
And then even in the military, the first time I tried to report something that was happening, we weren't protected, and I wasn't even the only woman at the time. But I watched my command put that person right back in my squad, where I was a team leader and he was my squad leader, and I had to work every single day with this person. And I spent a year with him, harassing me and making intimidating comments about how he ruined other people's lives and he would ruin my life. And then fast forward to the next physical incident and watching my command protect those people and getting harassed by everyone around me. The same kind of comments that I experienced as a child with parents and kids in my neighborhood about, ew, you're so disgusting. I can't believe she let that fat fuck put his hands on her. I can't believe she let fill in the blank, like I went out asking for it. And then when I'm getting pulled off duty because I have to go into investigations and meet with, the different teams to go through these processes, now people are mad at me because somebody has to do the work, right? So because now I'm not at work because somebody has to cover down for me, well, now they're mad at you for that. So when all you've seen is that when you do try to stand up for yourself and get the protection,
turns into a negative situation every time.
It turns into a negative. Yeah. It's
that is
lots of process. Didn't think we were going to talk about this stuff.
I
but
don't
we're
either.
Here now,
I have no idea where we were going to go with this one. So yeah, here we are. So dealing with all of that as a child, and then obviously getting to the age of being legal to join the military, it was like a no-brainer. You said earlier that you like the structure. Do you think that was because you grew up without structure, and this was something that deep down, like all pretty much, I'm a firm believer that structure is the number one thing for children. I mean, if they don't have structure, that's how you end up with shit kids, right? Not referring to you, but just these kids that just are able to run free and do whatever they want. So was that something that you were kind of chasing without knowing it, or were you just like, hey, this is my out, I got to get out of this small town, the military is that escape?
I think it's a multitude of things. I wanted so badly to prove that I had worth. And like, I remember a time when I was like running away from home, and this is when my stepdad was still in the picture, and I was like begging for attention, and nobody would pay attention to me. And I remember like I wasn't even tall enough to like reach the light switch yet because I was like jumping. And I remember I ran out of my house and I'm running. And I remember this one day just saying, they're going to be sorry. Everyone who doesn't want me in their life now is going to be sorry. I'm going to make something of myself. And I had like adopted that mindset that whatever I could do to prove them wrong, I was going to do it. So the boyfriend in high school that I had that kept telling me I was too much of a girly girl, you can't do this, you can't handle this, he would leave handprint bruises on my arms and tell me, it's not my fault you bruise so easily, stop being such a girly girl. So I adopted this mentality of, well, no, I'm going to go out and I'm going to show them I'm not. And then when I got into the military, and my work ethic of in high school. So I said I was failing out by 9th grade. By my junior year, I had straight A's. By senior year, I won homecoming queen. I was a triathlete.
What changed?
I had a teacher that showed me that I was actually smart and I was capable. Took one teacher.
God, imagine that.
Yep, I remember her to this day. I love her. She changed everything for me and showed me that if you put in the work, you can change the outcome. So I realized that I had a very high work ethic and that I was actually pretty high functioning. And I took that and when I got into the military, I realized if I showed up, if I did what I was told, and I worked hard and, I didn't quit and I did the things that nobody else wanted to do, that I was going to be successful. And I was wildly good at what I did. And I got addicted to that feeling. I got addicted to the performance because that was something I control. I could control. When you grow up in a life, in a household where you have no control, you have no idea what you're walking into every day. You have no idea where your food's coming from. You don't know what kind of atmosphere you're going to wake up into. That it kills you in a different kind of way. But when you get into the military, yes, there's structure. Show up, do this, be here. They tell you everything that you need to do and where you need to be and how to do it, but everything outside of that is in your control. When you show up on time, that's your decision. How you put yourself together, if your uniform is proper, from the minor details to how you execute your jobs and duties, that is all within your control. And I got addicted to that and I got really, really good at that.
Did you get a lot of hate for that?
Absolutely, especially being a young woman and excelling. I was the youngest promoted sergeant in New York State. I got my E5 at 20.
What was your MOS?
Military police.
Okay, I was gonna guess that.
They promoted me to corporal when I was 19 on deployment.
Where'd you deploy to?
We were in Guantanamo Bay.
How was that? What year was this?
2011. We did the 9/11 tribunals. We
Okay,
did a lot.
can we get in the
Yeah.
Can we touch on this? What was that like dealing with? So you're, God, so you grow up by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Not the best situation. You join the military as an MP and you get shipped straight to Guantanamo.
Yeah. Where they hate women.
Yeah.
So much.
Everybody.
Yeah.
And then you're dealing with the shittiest of shitty people, terrorists and everybody that hates, Americans probably already, and women on top of that even more. So you're public enemy number one.
And then your unit that you're with, you also don't have any support from.
Let's dig into this one.
There's a whole lot. So I'll tell you what happens like my first 72 hours on the ground.
Oh my God, yes, please.
We got there. Mind you, I'm 19. I barely just turned 19. 18, 19. I don't know shit about life yet. Okay?
Yeah.
I didn't know.
I feel like
I did and I didn't. Okay, I didn't know anything about military life. I hadn't been exposed to firearms.
Okay.
In basic training, come on, let's be real. You get like...
Well, Army basic training. Let's just
be clear. You're right. Army basic training, you don't get a whole lot. Like I remember the moment I shot my first rifle, and it was great. But we were teacupping in 2011. Okay, I have pictures of it, so I don't know a whole lot. But we get issued all our stuff. We go out on our convoy. We do our crap. We're right seating, left seating.
Yep.
We come back. I was at one of the furthest posts away. We have to wait for somebody to drive up, the MAV up the vehicle. Yeah, this whole thing. We get that back there, and our platoon sergeant's like, let's go, hurry up, we're late, this whole thing. So I'm running over to the guard shack to turn in my gun and all my stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The girl that was working in the armory, she wasn't an MP. She was like our admin. She was like an HR, right? So she takes all my stuff, and at the time, right, I had excelled. I had moved up pretty quickly. Young, high-performing female. This other female doesn't like that. I don't know what happens. I turn in all my stuff. I give her my things. Nobody teaches us the procedures on how we're supposed to turn in our gear here. But next thing I know...
This is all in this first 72 hours?
It's all in the first 72 hours.
Okay.
Next thing I know... I'm getting called in and I'm getting reported for pointing a loaded gun at her. Like I drew my gun and I pointed it at her. And I literally couldn't wrap my head around this because I was like, I did what? Like, no, I went with my partner and we turned in all of our stuff and then I left. Nobody talks to me about this incident. Nobody asks me what happened. There's no investigation, nothing. I get pulled off. I almost got Article 15. They almost tore up my career. They put me on 2 weeks restriction. I could not leave my room. I was only allowed to wear my stupid PT clothes, no civilian clothes.
Oh God,
dumb, but whatever.
Armies is horrible.
I had to write a report and I had to read it to my hopeful. I mean, they just hammered me. Turns out this chick was screwing our commander at the time. They were in a relationship. And for whatever reason,
she was threatened.
Yeah, she felt threatened. So let's say that I pointed my gun. So one of my first experiences with firearms is this. I pointed my gun at somebody, and my life was ruined for it. So now after that, there's this black cloud. This is for 72 hours. So now what happens is I become the company's scapegoat. Anytime something breaks, anytime something's missing, anytime a round isn't accounted for at the end of every shift that you have to turn in all your ammo. It must have been Amanda. It must have been her. Oh, she must have lost it. So now I'm getting written up for crazy stuff that I'm not even on duty. I'm sleeping in my bed and I'm getting in trouble for stuff that was happening to other people. I'm just like, how did I get here and what happened.
You're like,
right?
this is not the military experience I
It
was
was
expecting.
awful. Like, this was not what I had experienced, like, prior to that. Not that it was like a whole lot of experience, but that coupled with the disgusting squad leader that I had tried to report when we were mobbing out, when we were out at Bliss. That was before we were in boots on the ground. So that was carried into this firearm situation. So then that all carries into,
Damn, they had it out for you.
oh, I don't even, like, for what? Because, and it's so funny because I was the reason that my unit even made deployment. This is probably so wrong, but I sat there for 2 weeks before we made it out, and all of our online training modules that we had to
You did
do
them all?
for everyone in the company. I had platoon sergeants calling me, asking me, can you do all of these modules for my platoon? I did them for platoon sergeants. I did them for lieutenants. I did everyone's online training for my unit because we were so behind. We weren't going to make our cutoff date.
Oh my God.
I sat there in our computer lab, boots on ground, walking through, training everybody on how to get through all of the dumb training we had to do. And that was what I got in return. It was nuts. And then fast forward to when the physical assault actually happened.
When that was while you were over in Guantanamo or before you left?
That was while I was in Guantanamo.
How was what? That was a guy.
That was just a sergeant.
Some random.
a
He was
sergeant.
part of your unit.
Part of my unit, somebody that I thought I could trust.
How did that happen?
While everybody else was exiling me, there were, those ones and twos that were like, man, I'm really sorry. Like, this sucks. You're a good girl. And he was a lot older, kind of like everyone called him grandpa. And I developed that trusting relationship with him.
Do you think it was a form of grooming now that you look back at it?
1,000% predator prey all day. Yeah. When you know that someone is weak and they're vulnerable, and it wasn't the first time, but I didn't know enough. I didn't understand that I was in the grooming process and that people will take advantage of that when everybody shuts you out and everybody makes you feel unwanted and less than and not worthy of. Then there's those people that see that as an opportunity and they say, okay, that's my one. She's the one. And he 1,000% took advantage of that. And I just didn't know any better. And at the time, I did blame myself because I thought I should have known better. I should have seen it coming. But I was 19. Like, you just... And I was so afraid of being jaded because of what I had gone through. I didn't want to keep carrying that and thinking, okay, everyone is bad. I had held on for so long to believe that there were good people in the world. And I wanted so badly to be loved because I hadn't been loved, that anybody who showed me a little bit of love and a little bit of care, I latched onto.
For sure.
And I was like, oh my gosh, okay, maybe this person does care about me. But then each time it just showed to be the opposite. It was just predator and prey every time.
Damn.
And then there was...
So the incident happens, and you don't have to get into detail or anything on that, but he reported that, and that's where nothing happened?
He got put on admin 9 to 5, Monday through Friday.
For how long?
The rest of the deployment.
How long were you guys there?
We were there for 14 months.
Oh, God.
And then,
so he hated you.
Nothing really happened, I guess. I mean, we tried not to see each other, and that wasn't even the only incident. And the person, it was nuts. The person that I reported it to was somebody else who had done something. And I was just, I hate it. When I look back on it, I swear I look at myself and be like, how were you so dumb, right? But then I want to have grace for myself that it wasn't about being dumb, right? Because that's not the reality of it. It's you're broken down. It is a grooming process. It's like how women get, brought into sex trafficking. They are groomed and groomed and groomed and groomed. And when you were groomed your entire life from the year from 2 years old, you don't know anything else. So this other person, and I've since forgiven them for what had happened. I wake up in the middle of the night to something. That person wanted a lot of control over me and what was happening. So it was that trauma bond where The person that's same thing with my stepdad. This person's so awful to you, but they are all you know because everybody else is also awful. But this person is awful and then loves you and then is awful and then loves you. And they're so sorry that they did what they did to you because they did it because they love you so much. I just care about you so much. Yeah. I just, I don't want anybody else to have you. I don't want anybody else to hurt you. So it is this grooming cycle. So then when somebody else does something awful to you, this person that you're their awful gets really angry about it. And then they're your protector, even though they're not actually any better, right?
Sure.
So that's our domestic violence, cycle too. This person that you're married to or you're in this household with is so awful to you, but they love you so much and they're providing for you and they're taking care of you and they have a roof over your head. So these play off of each other and then it goes nowhere.
I feel the military is almost a breeding ground. So I was fortunate enough in my earlier days, we had no women in our MOS. We were completely...
That's the way it should be.
I want to get into this real quick. Yeah. I am, and I don't even care if I catch flack for this, I have a huge problem with women, not so much in the military, but co-ed units. So in my early days, when we were in the early, especially deployment days, early Iraq days, it was just us. It was all dudes. I mean, because we were a combat MOS. And so we didn't have to deal with any of it. But then when we got on ship, these naval ships, and we were on our way to Kuwait to go into Iraq, that's when our unit got exposed to women for the first time. And you don't even know how to deal with it because now we went from just smelling dirty ass and balls all day to now you'd get a whiff of a woman and it's a primal thing.
Yeah.
I'll never forget. We just finished a mission in Iraq, and we rolled in this little town that we took over. It was Hit, Iraq. We were operating at the train station, and the main base was in this town, and we had to go get supplies from it. We were sitting on top of our vehicles, and this smell came through, and I mean, you could see these dudes like bird dogs, just and we actually had a joke from this because it was like everyone perks up. We're like, "You smell that? You smell? I smell a woman. I smell a woman." And we're like, "Where is she?" It was one of those things.
The pheromones.
It's 100%. And when you're removed from that, there's a legit primal side to us.
Science.
100%. And that's what the science behind perfumes and when they wear it. And so it's a legit thing. But me as a young dumb Marine, I wasn't looking at it from this point of view. And, we did our time. And then I ended up going to be the 1st Marine Division Color Sergeant, which was a huge honor. It's the most decorated division in the Marine Corps. So I had to learn how to work with women for the first time. I've been around them. They were on our ships. It was a shit show. Dudes were getting caught up.
Now it's close quarters.
Yeah. So then now I have women, not in my office, but I'm working directly with women. And I hated it. Absolutely hated it. I saw how women were treated differently in those units versus, let's say, a young troop male Marine. His life is fucking hell. You say, yeah, you don't run, you're not addressing us immediately, you're getting hazed. Then I was seeing the same sergeant that just hazed this lance corporal, and then some female Marine would walk in and be like, "Hey, Sergeant," and just bullshit them, and they'd sit there and their whole demeanor would change. So I was fortunate enough where we were in a secured vault. So it was and I was able to pretty much recruit the guys that worked for me, which were all grunts coming back from deployments. I would just pick and choose these guys, and we would work, and we would all what the fuck? These admin Marines, these sergeants, staff sergeants, they would there was a big difference in how they were treating, and it was a very flirty way of how they were addressing these young female military or female Marines versus their young junior Marines. It was night and day. Yeah. And that never sat with me. I always was like, man, this is not the right thing. And then throughout my time in the military, working with more women when I was up there and traveling for the 1st Marine Division, all the drama we would have to deal with, because during that position I was in charge of the colors of the flag, the big flags every night, had to go up and down, all this stuff. So I would have to go to these, we call them POG units, comm units and things like that. And we didn't have women in our barracks. We didn't have anything around. And I'm going there, and all the incidences that all these men and women were getting into was all all being co-ed.
Yep.
And it never sat right with me. And I hate the fact that there's women in combat units now. One, the mental change that it does on the battlefield. I feel as like just in the good old boy network.
Pride and Prejudice stuff.
It's hard when you're just men. Everybody's got you got your shit, right? Yeah. Take care of your whatever the situation is. But then when you throw a woman on a battlefield, I feel that most men now are shifting their attention to keeping women safe. It's
your just, natural born instincts.
And
it's the masculine and feminine. And
I don't think that women have a place on the battfield, and I'll catch shit for it. And I don't care.
No, I agree. I'm a woman, and I'll tell you that.
When I was deployed, with my kid on, I was pushing 300 pounds, and half the dudes in my platoon couldn't get me out of a vehicle if they had to, or drag me for very long. And so it's things like that and then it throws a whole other dynamic into everything. And it's, you can't have, you can say what you want. The camaraderie's never the same.
Never the same.
You're never able to have the guy talk. You're never able to be open and free and just bullshit. I mean, and just be men when you throw that atmosphere in there. Yeah. I think the military messes up horribly by trying to bring this equality onto the battlefield or into the military, because women can do what men can do and men can do it. And the craziest part for me now in this stage of my life, like, I look at my daughters, and you're not going to ever be able to do everything that I did physically. But as a woman, women are the most incredible thing on this planet. They're what give birth and bring life to everything. They have their own world and their own incredible thing that they bring as a woman, and being emotional and caring and nurturing. Like, we have this, we could come together and do things all the time. That's not an issue. But the fact of when they try to force this, they're putting women in male barracks and expecting there to not be an issue. Yeah. We're blacked out drunk from Friday to Sunday afternoon, and we have nothing to worry about. Then when I go up to the division, now these Marines are getting in trouble because they're going in rooms when they're not supposed to be, going in after hours. It was a really touchy subject. I was really close with I had 2 really good female Marine friends. And I would hear their stories, but at the same time, they would tell me, like, this female Marine slept with 5 dudes. All the pictures got shared. Everybody started talking about it. And the first thing she would do was claim rape. And then she was trying to bring all these guys down. And so I feel that adds
that's a whole other
dynamic, because then when it's really happening, you have, I'm not saying all these women, because you can't judge anybody.
Need the help and they're not getting it
because they're integrating these environments, and now it's almost diluting the water. And I could be completely wrong, and I could be talking out my ass. I'm not speaking for women at all in the military. This is from what I saw, and you would see these women, and they had their stigma or their reputation. And then all of a sudden it gets out, or she gets caught with some staff NCO, and then all of a sudden is now, I don't want to say ruining careers, but it was ruining careers because she was making poor life decisions. But then when the next woman came along and something legitimately happened to her, I feel like it was never taken as serious or dealt with, taken all the way up the ranks that it should be, because there was a time where, I think there was like 6 or 7 women in those barracks that all were claiming rape, and they were all partying. It was the easy
way out, because now it's not on them, and I don't care. Those women ruined it for other women, 1,000%.
100%.
One, they made it hard for women to be protected where they needed to be, but then they also made it hard for women to be successful and do well at what they were doing. If you were a high performer, if you were getting promoted, why'd you get promoted, man?
That's the first question. Who
were you sleeping with?
Yeah.
I learned very quickly on that first deployment, because I watched it happen. I watched my commander get removed from duty and sent back to Texas to face the consequences of sleeping and being in a relationship with an E4. I watched another girl get sent home because she got pregnant on deployment. I watched these different things happen, and I quickly knew and determined that I was never going to let those things define my career. Yeah. I would never be in a relationship.
It's so hard. You guys are in like a battle. It's a battle
either,
as a woman.
You're either a slut or a bitch. You're either standoffish to everybody, and
which you almost have to be. It's hard to draw that line, because especially with men, just saying hi to a man can be taken
The wrong
in
way.
100 different ways.
If you're just a nice, kind, sweet, nurturing, if you just are the woman that God designed you to be, then you must be trying to put out, or she's probably sleeping with everybody. There is no healthy dynamic between men and women within this field. Not only the relationships, but let's talk about this right where we were going before. The science of your bodies. Your natural instincts are to be a protector. You're an alpha man. You are the protector. That is just how you how you live, right? It's all
wired.
It's how you're wired. Thank you. It's all you know. Now put women on the battlefield, on the front lines in combat with men. Do you think that you're focused on yourself, your brother, or her?
Her.
You're going to be way more inclined to make riskier decisions and put yourself out there and in more dangerous situations to try to keep her safe, not thinking the same way because it's how you're wired, versus just doing your damn job. Just doing what you need to do and doing it the way that you were trained to do. But now you have a woman and you watch her get shot and go down, everything changes.
Everything. Now you're dealing with a woman. I mean, we, not us, but in our battalion, they got hit. We were living out of house. Anyways, they're running an entrance control point, and they had a suicide bomber walk in and take out 2 female Marines. And I mean, you can see the whole dynamic change immediately.
It's entirely different.
Inside of everything.
Which is sad to say, because it's not like they're any more or less important than your brothers.
But everybody has a role, and a different role. And, and it's just one of those things that I will die on that hill that women do not belong on a battlefield. And I know there's going to be...
let men do things that men are good at. We, like you said, we bring a unique skill set to society.
100%.
That is what we were made to do. That is what we were designed to do. That's why there is the masculine, and that's why there is the feminine, and that's why they go really well together. Masculine don't go well together in those types of relationships, right? So when you introduce that and you switch up the dynamic, and now you have women trying to be men, and now they're taking that away, and now what we are creating is beta men in society. Because now men are scared to stand up and be men, because God forbid you're a strong alpha masculine man. You're toxic. You're toxic masculinity, because you're a leader, because you're a protector, because you're a provider, because you're doing all of the things that you were designed to do. And then you have women trying to step up and do a man's job, and now who's doing? Men can't give birth. I'm sorry, but you are highly incapable. You will never be able to do the things that women do.
That's why this whole agenda now, it just blows my mind, and I don't want to get too off topic with it, but it's just like, God, women are such an incredible, fascinating creature. And I mean that in the most, one, we can't figure you all out. You guys can't figure out what you want for dinner half the time. But
very true. That'll never change.
You guys, I mean, women have crumbled empires. They've built empires, and they're the one I would, if I had the opportunity to choose boys or girls, I would 100% choose having daughters again. It's incredible. But like this whole agenda that we're not equal. No. Women will never be equal to men, and men will never be equal to women. It's
what you just said right there. That's the difference. Everyone says women will never be equal to men, but where's the rest of it? Men will also never be equal to women, because we are designed differently.
100%.
We have different purposes. Stop trying to be equal. It's not 100%. About equal. You are both 100% in your own realms, in your roles, in your contributions.
The nurturing side of things alone, like when I have sick kids. I don't do sick kids. I don't
There's
have
somebody for that.
But my wife, that's the nurturing.
That's
her role, and she's okay with that, But when it comes to taking my kids out and showing them things and showing them just basic skills and life skills, I have all the time in the world and all the patience in the world for it. When it comes to some sick kid, I don't want to fuck with it. It's just how I'm. And I know there's dads that are like, I have no problem. Cool, that's everybody's. But like for how I'm wired, I don't have. And obviously, if I was some single dad, you just have to grind and deal with it. I 100% understand. That's a whole different boat. But like knowing where my wife's role is taking care of that sick child or providing and having to nurture and love and.
That's why you make such a good team.
Yes.
That's why you're a partnership.
Yes.
It's a cohesive, healthy unit.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to build. I mean, I'll be the first one to say it. I did not always have this mentality. I was living an unhealthy, I don't need a man. I can do it all myself. Watch me grind. Put me out there on the front line. I can do everything that you can do. And I promise you I will show up and I will do it. But it wasn't a healthy mentality. It was 100% coming from unhealthy places.
And every time I've ever seen that female, it'll last for, it can last a few years, but it's not sustainable.
Not sustainable, exactly.
It's not sustainable because they're trying to be something they're truly not. And if it's because they've been put in shitty situations, if it was how it was raised, I mean, it's all up to that person, but it's, you always see it. And I think it's a whole nother side of the dynamic when you get a woman that comes into a law enforcement unit, military unit, and I'm G.I. Jane, I could do everything. Every guy, and I don't give a fuck who they are. Every dude's like, God damn, here we go again. Like, but she's the first to complain, the first to report somebody, the first to have any issues. And it's like, well, you said you want to be equal. You wanted to come into this unit.
You can't handle it.
But now you can't handle it. You can't handle the banter. You can't handle the hazing and the bullshit that all these other dudes are going through every day. And then it's never equal. I mean, I talked about on one of the other podcasts, we had a bunch of female Marines come out to our vehicle control point that we were running outside of the city, that we literally controlled everything that came in and out of the city. And they wanted to come and join in. We told them they had to burn their own shit. And after they burned their shit one time, they all packed up and left. And I was like, well, what happened to fucking equality here? Y'all want to be us, but you don't want to burn your shit.
Yeah, until you have to show up. It sounds great until you have to show up and you have to do the work. And
do the work.
Put it in.
And so it's just like, I just don't know where, I mean, I know we know where it went wrong. We can see with politics and our political environment right now, but it's just like, there's nothing wrong with being a strong, powerful, independent, amazing woman. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, and this isn't against going and I tell my daughters every day, you're never going to fucking work for somebody. You're going to own your own business. You're going to be the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. Like,
there you go.
So this isn't that aspect.
It's not saying you're only supposed to stay home and be a homemaker.
Hell no.
Only raise kids.
No.
Like, and that's what I try so hard to make clear about, like, what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
And I can be with Athena, I can be in a world where I'm equipping women on a daily basis to defend and protect themselves. I'm giving them the skill sets to protect themselves, not only physically through lethal measures, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually against daily and societal threats. And but it still means go home to your husband and allow him to be your protector too. The point is, women cannot be with a man 100% of the time. When you have a man, lean into him. Let him be your leader. Let him be your protector.
Yes.
And you know what? If you guys are ever in a situation, I want you to be able to work together as a team and a partnership, and you have your role and he has his role. And then when you are on your own and he has left the house, or he's traveling, or he's out having guys' night, or whatever it is that he's doing, or you're running around with the kids, you're running errands, you're at home for by yourself for the weekend, whatever the case is, you know that you can hold down the fort. You know that you can hold your own. You can keep your baby safe. You can
step up to the plate if you have to.
Absolutely. It's not about teaching women that they don't need men. It's about teaching them that they can do it if their man's not there, or if they don't have a man in their life yet, or if and when you guys can be a Mr. and Mrs. Smith together. Yeah. However you want to visualize it.
Yep. I feel like we've lost we've gotten so off track as far as roles and what is accepted. And, you see that NFL player that just did his speech and talked about, and I see where I listened and I watched the whole thing, and I can see where some women were offended with it 100%. But at the same time, like my wife, prime example, when we pulled our kids to homeschool, she stepped back from a lot on her career, and that was her decision. She came to me and was like, I'm pulling, you're with me or against me? Okay, cool. And then we're going to have to make some sacrifices. There's going to be some major changes. Yeah. So she had a lot come up lately in this last month when it came to business and real estate, and that she had to jump back into it. And she got hit with like 6 clients all at once, like within a week. Good for her. Yeah. And she, still going through it, but she just came to me the other night and she's like, it's not worth it. She's like, I don't care how much money I'm making. It's not worth the time that I'm able to spend with my kids. So at the same time, I see what he was talking about, because that's
what she's naturally built to do, though.
And that's what she wants to do. And I have no problem. I had a sugar mama for a while. She was crushing it. And I was like, oh, you do you, boo. Like, finally, okay, I made it, Yeah. And, then when we made that decision, I was like, okay, cool, whatever, we're fine. It's not a big deal. But it was nice when I'm one of those guys like, oh, your wife makes more money. Fuck yeah, I don't care. Like,
Yeah.
cool with it. But she's at that chapter now, and we've been able to spend so much time as a family, and her with the kids being able to just spend all day, every day, homeschooling, nurturing, building the sour beet, us doing sour. And now that she had all this work, she was like, it's not worth it. She's like, I am so glad that we made the decision. She goes, it literally reassured all of the doubt that she's had and walking away from a great career and all that. She's like, I would give it up 100 times, knowing now, and she's obviously still practicing in the real estate business, but as far as procuring, being out, grinding, door knocking, open house, she's like, I'm done. She's like, it let me know. And so I see his point of view on, like, was it the right approach? Maybe not, but I understand it, because there are women out there like that are amazing stay-at-home moms, and they're doing everything for their kids, and they're putting out an incredible child that's going to be a young adult and not be a parasite to society, and they're going to go contribute. There's also a lot of stay-at-home moms that don't. Yeah. So, and there's a lot of women that are built for the work field, and they want to go and have their own career and own their own business, work themselves up the ranks the right way, and to run a fucking company one day. There's nothing wrong with any of it. Yeah. And that's the best part about this country. You're able to do whatever you want to do.
You get to choose. You get to choose how you want to live your life. You get to choose the dynamic that you want. And I think I saw like Jason Kelsey caught a ton of flack, right, for some of his comments about this too. Yeah. And like he had to come out and say, like, we're not saying be a homemaker, don't be a homemaker. We're not saying you should or shouldn't do anything. Mm-hmm. But in our household, we're a team and we're a partnership, and we both contribute equally. If our house is messy, it's not her fault, and it's not my fault, it's our fault. Yep. If my house is messy, it's not because, she's failing to do her job as a woman. Yep. It's because we both, haven't shown up. And if our kids don't get what they need, that's on me too as a man. It's not 100% on her. Yep, 100%. And it's about, and if that's what works for you in your home, then absolutely.
I know couples that have split bank accounts. Yeah. That to me is they've been married for like 15 years, and what's hers is hers, and it works for them.
And it works. I know people who are married and they live in separate houses. They don't even live together. She owns her own house, he owns his, whatever. If it works for you,
it works.
Fine.
Like, that's the best part.
Are there some things that, do I believe in the nuclear family? Yes, to a degree. I do believe in women being in their feminine and men being 100%. In their masculine. And men, there's times where they have to move into their feminine, and women have to move into their masculine. Mm-hmm. Masculinity and femininity is not gender specific. Both sexes have both in them. Mm-hmm. It's just about which one are you living in and when. And women have it hard, because if you're following the path and you want to be more in your feminine and be in that nurturing, kind, loving, when dad leaves, who has to move into the masculine? Mm-hmm. She does. She's at home disciplining your kids right now. She's at home making all the decisions about your house. She's driving the ship. She's executing. She's thinking about budgeting. She's shopping, right? She's making a ton of decisions without you right now. But guess what has to shift the second you walk in the door? Yep. You expect but people expect all of a sudden now you have to turn it off. Okay, I'm here now. Now I'm making the decisions. I'm the one now driving the ship, and she has to lean into that, trust you enough to take over that role, switch back into her feminine, give dad over that power, the execution, the decision making. And now you have to be in this healthy flow and this power shift, but it's not even a power shift, because now you're still working together as a team. Now you just have different roles and responsibilities.
And that's the best way it could have been said. And that's how our home is run. I mean, I'm on the road a lot. Yeah. And then I always come home, all right, dad's home.
Right.
Dad's home.
Here you go.
Let's go back into it.
You know how hard it is for a woman to turn that on and off?
I can imagine.
You know how hard it is for a woman to go out and be a business owner and make all the decisions and show up every day for a company or lead a team, and then go home and submit all of that over to your husband? There's always a leader, right? You can be a partnership. There's always a leader. Yep. Someone is, and I had heard this really good example when they say like the husband or the man is the head of the household. Absolutely, you're the head of the household, but the women are the neck. You're
Oh, for
supporting
sure.
the head. She's the one helping you see left and right and making you
Yep.
go where you need to go. She's your guiding force, and then you're the executor. You talk, you make decisions together, and then you go out and you be a man and you execute those decisions and you lead your family.
And it's so hilarious you say that, because my wife, she's like, the best queens and the best empires weren't run by kings. They were run by queens, but behind closed doors that sat them down and pointed in the right direction and fed them the knowledge, what they needed to do.
Yep.
And so, and so that's kind of where we base ourselves on. Like, I make mistakes, she'll fucking snatch me up so fast. Like, and I have no problem with it.
She holds you accountable.
And that's the dynamic I feel that is healthy, that, I can't come in and be like, no, this is how it's going to, especially with daughters. I mean, in this state, in teenage day, I don't know how to handle shit, like, and changes and things are going on, and I'm like, I'm trying to process that. And so, she'll sit me down. Hey, this is what's going on. This is natural. This is how things are supposed to happen. This is a healthy teenage girl. This is, I'm like,
okay.
Okay, but that's the neck. Every household needs that, and when you come together with it, so
It doesn't work when you have two heads.
nope,
Never.
because you're constantly going in two different directions.
Yep.
And I see it all the time. So sorry, that was a tangent, but
Love it. Here for it.
right, who would have thought we would have been going down that direction? So military.
Yeah.
So after you got back from your deployment, how long were you still in? I mean, you were National Guard, you said?
Yeah.
How long was your contract?
I took a recruiting assignment, and then that's when I was working for somebody that was, again, just not like a great leader. I was really good at what I did.
I feel like recruiters, no offense to recruiters listening, I feel like they are complete sleazeballs. I know so many that have gotten
That's why
caught.
I was successful, was because I wasn't. I was super honest, but I was also 20, 21 years old. I was incredibly relatable to the young adults and teens that were getting out of high school wanting to do that. So parents loved to talk to me.
Oh, for
I had
sure.
a parent sit down, and I cleared out the office because they wanted to talk to me in private, and they said, Amanda, they called me my rank and stuff at the time, but is my daughter going to be sexually assaulted if she joins the military? And I looked at her and I said, probably. Yeah, she probably will be.
Damn.
Very high likeliness.
Is there a statistic, or do you know any like percentage of women in the military?
Gosh, I'm not up to date with
Yeah, I
current
wasn't
statistics,
sure.
but at the time I did try to follow that stuff, and I shared with them my own story of a little bit of what I'd experienced. But part of that was, I tell you this because I want you to know the truth, but this is also why it's so important to equip your daughter and educate her and sit down and have these conversations, because I also want you to know it is just as likely that she's going to get sexually assaulted when she goes to college.
Oh, for sure.
So you have to pick the
Pick or
lesser
choose.
of the evils, right? And it's about having these conversations. You will never be able to stop her from doing anything and protect her 100% from these things not happening. But what kind of conversations and preventative measures can we take right now to make it less likely? I cannot guarantee that if your daughter joins the military, she's not going to be sexually assaulted or harassed, or something worse is going to happen to her. Yeah. But together, we can open up the communication.
Never thought about comparing it to college, because I'm sure it is way worse.
They literally signed the papers that day. They were sold, done. It was okay. Thank you for your your honesty and the reality of what it was. But it was also, look at how much she's going to learn and grow. I do not regret joining the military. I don't regret any of the things that I got to experience. It was hard. I have lived a very hard life, and I lived a very, very difficult career. It was never made easy for me. I had to work 4 to 5 times harder. The things that have been said about me, the rumors that have been said about me, the unimaginable things, and people believed it. When I got into the CIA, my first couple months,
Pause.
yeah.
Okay. So you got out. I want to know.
No, I stayed in. I went in a part-time. I switched to Washington, D.C. National Guard.
And that's where, so you went out of there, or were stationed out of there, I guess. That's when you decided to go CIA?
Yeah.
What made you go that route? I know you touched it on your intro,
It was
but
something that I'd always envisioned for my future. It was
Really?
like that pipe dream. I really want to work for the CIA one day. I really want to work for the CIA one day. And every decision I had made was, is this going to get me closer? I mean, so when I was recruiting, I was looking at skydiving school. I was looking at scuba diving school. I mean, I was looking at all the things like what's going to make me like really cool and unique and set me apart. And it was like my 10, 15-year plan. I thought I had to live a life first before they would even consider hiring me. And like I had said before, my station commander at the time, was doing some unethical things.
With you or just in general?
Just in general,
Okay.
Borderline both. And I just couldn't get behind it anymore. And I got so angry. And he would call me lazy and put me down and just all these crazy things, even though I was the top producer on my team, and he would take my work and pass it off as his own. And he tells me one day, if you don't like working for me, then go work for somebody else, Amanda. Leave. And I said, okay. And in my mind, like I said, I got online and I start just reading up on jobs on the agency. And I don't know, it just felt like I was doing something about my situation. I wanted a different life. I knew I wanted a different life. And I knew the only person that was going to give me a different life was me. So in my mind, I was actively doing something to change my circumstances. So I fill out my application and I put OPSEC on almost every question. I didn't know what I could and couldn't say. I didn't, because I signed all of this stuff when I was in Gitmo and everything that I had done. I was like, I don't know what I'm allowed to talk about. So I literally put OPSEC period on most of my application. Why they interviewed me, I'll never understand.
How old were you at this point?
20. I just turned 21.
Still young.
It was like a month after I turned 21, maybe.
So you apply to the CIA, and and how long did it take for them to get back to you?
21, 22. My first week, I just turned 23. So I think I had actually just turned 22. Apologies. So I just turned 22. My whole process was about 9 months from start to finish.
What was that like?
Oh, it was terrible. I remember when I went for my interview. Okay, I was so nervous. This is the stuff that you see on TV. I show up. I'm 22 years old, right? I go down to DC. I go for my interview.
Are you like at a random building, or is this like the actual CIA like headquarters? This is just.
Nope, it's a random building.
Okay.
I don't know anything about anything. And it's you go in and there's a group of you. I think maybe there were like 26 of us that day.
Are they all young or all different ages?
All different ages.
Okay.
And HR comes in first, and they give you all this paperwork to fill out. And even though they already have everything on you, but let's do it again. And I was so nervous. I just couldn't control myself because it was so monumental for me. This was my life dream. I'm filling out my paperwork. And mind you, I was active duty at the time. I had a government computer and 2 levels of encryption for your government computer, right? You have a PIN and you have your social security number that you have to punch in order to gain access. I could not remember my social security number for the life of me. I'm trying to write it down, and all these series of numbers are coming back to me. I knew it was on my military ID.
They were still doing it back then.
I grabbed my military ID from my file. I blacked out, dude. Tunnel vision. I'm staring at my military ID. It's not on there. It was on there, but my brain couldn't see it.
That's wild.
I can't find my social security number on my ID.
Your ID.
I thought it was here. I don't understand. I put it back. So I come up with whatever number sequence I could possibly feel confident with. I fill out my paperwork, I submit it, right? Now, mind you, I'm still pretty fresh. We're still in that you say hello to everybody that you pass by. Good day, sir. Good morning, ma'am. You know, the good etiquette. So they're walking us in a line to this orientation room, and then they walk us to this other room. And every time we're in this hall walking, there's this older gentleman with like white hair, glasses. You could tell he's experienced, and he's in the hall, and everyone's quiet, and I can't help myself. Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, sir. And we just kept walking by this guy, and I'm like, but I can't help myself. So then we go back to the waiting room after they give us all this orientation stuff, and then now the interviewers are coming out and they're calling people's names.
Is he one of them?
So this guy comes out, and I hear my name, and some people have 2 people, and some people have 1 person, and I'm walking through, and I'm trying to find who's calling my name, and it's this guy. It's the man that was standing in the hall that I kept saying hello to all morning, and I'm like, oh no. And I don't know why I was so scared. And I get in this room, and it's literally what you imagine. It's this little square room, smaller than this, a flickering light, a small little table between us, and these like hard chairs. And he sits down, and I sit down, and he's got this folder in front of him, and he's like, Amanda, are you ready to begin your interview? I said, yes, sir, I am. And he's like, okay. And he opens my folder. And when he opens my folder, I see my social security number and a sticker under my name. I was like, no, wait, I'm not even exaggerating. And he was like, what? I was like, I'm not ready. I have to tell you something, and it's really embarrassing, but I just have to get it off my chest because I need you to know. I was so nervous earlier when I was filling out all my paperwork that I forgot my social security number. But sir, I do know my social security number because it's actually my PIN in order to gain access to my government laptop that I post like 20 times a day. So I do know it. I promise I know it. But I just forgot it because I'm just really nervous. And I just needed you to know that the number on my paperwork's not the right number. Okay, now I'm ready. And he just stares at me. He just starts.
God.
I'm like almost in
He's just
tears.
like blink, blink, blink. Like, what in the hell?
What just happened? I'm not even kidding you. I just like word vomited on this guy. And he looks at me and he just starts laughing. And he's like, Amanda, can I tell you something? I was like, yes, sir. And he pulls out his agency badge, right? So you're like badge employees. And on the back of our badges, there's a number letter sequence that everybody gets. That's like your
number.
ID. That's your print. And he says, do you see this right here? And I said, yes, sir. And he's like, I could not tell you what it says. I don't know what number letter sequence this is. And he said, I've been carrying this badge for 33 years and I don't know what it says on the back of it. He said, that's why we have HR. They'll get your social security number right.
There you go. At least he's a good sport about it.
He was so good. And I just like, from that moment, I let it all exhale, and we go through this interview.
What are they, just basic interview questions, or is it more like law enforcement? Like, have you ever done anything?
No, that these interviews were more about like with how much I can like say and can't say. Some were very specific to skill sets, and some were personality based questions. Tell me about a time, what you imagine about a time for this, or can you give me an example of when you had to use this skill set to do this thing, that kind of stuff.
Got it.
And I go home, I'm on that plane, and I think I bombed it. I thankfully my plane was pretty empty. I go to the very last seat on my plane, and I cry the whole flight home. I'm just sitting there bawling. My life was over. This was all I had worked for. This was all I wanted out of life. And I
forgot my social.
And I forgot my social. Why would the CIA hire me? I don't know my social. And my life is over. In my mind, my life was over. There's nothing else I'm going to do in my life. I have no purpose.
God.
So fast forward, I am waiting anxiously for weeks and weeks and weeks, just waiting to get my rejection letter.
So they will let you know.
Oh
yes
yeah,
or no. Okay.
They let you know. Once you're at that point, they let you know. And then I get a letter to come back for my I get a conditional offer of employment.
Really?
I was like,
how many times did you have to read that letter?
Oh, too many. I couldn't believe it. And it was crazy. So then I fly back, and now you have to go through your psych, your medical, your lie detector, right? Your polygraph. And now I'm in my polygraph. And they are telling me that I don't know, like whatever, that I have committed acts of terrorism. We know you've done it. You've committed acts of terrorism. And they're hammering me, dude.
Is this a tactic?
Yeah. And at this point, I think because I was in Guantanamo Bay, they wanted to make sure that I wasn't like some young, naive, like a turned U.S. soldier that then was like, okay, I got you, like Al-Qaeda. I'm going to go join the CIA and I'm going to give you all this information. But I'm like 22. My entire life, all I wanted was the CIA, right? I never smoked. I never did any drugs. I didn't party. I didn't do anything. never got arrested. I was like as good as I could be. And they're telling me that I did this, and I lose my mind. And I was like, how could I have committed acts of terrorism? I was a triathlete. I was in all these clubs. I got straight A's in high school. I've never even tried marijuana. I was homecoming queen. And then I joined the military. Like, where would I have had time to commit an act of terrorism? And if I did, wouldn't you have known about it? And if you don't know about it, I don't know if I want to work here.
This is your CIA interview.
This is my polygraph.
Oh my
I was
God.
so
And they still
emotionally.
hired
I
you.
was so emotionally dysregulated.
This is why our CIA is all
No.
fucked up right now.
No, but it was because I was like so pure and innocent that I was so broken, but
so
that I wasn't
confused,
broken, that they're like, how can we not hire her? Like, look how moldable she is.
They're like, and perfect.
It was so bad. This lady gets up and she walks out. She had to have gone to like her supervisor and been like, all right, guys, like, I think enough is enough. I think it's fine.
We got what we need.
We've broken her. And I'm in there and she walks out and I'm like, can't breathe, suffocating.
She's out in the hall laughing,
Oh,
dying
100%.
laughing.
I would love to see my interview tape. So fast forward and I get hired. And I end up running into later on my interviewer, the gentleman, I call him Jerry, who interviewed me. And he ends up being one of my mentors. Still to this day,
Really?
actually, we still talk.
That's cool.
And he had told me not too long, somewhere along the way, he said, Amanda, I've been doing this for all these years. He said, I've never had an interview as good as yours. He said, your interview was the best I've ever seen. And everyone after you, I have evaluated against your interview on whether or not I decide to hire them or not. And I'm over here like, all right, guys, that's tricked. Just forget your social security number. You're good.
Cry.
I'm gonna go cry. No, but it was my candidness.
Yeah.
It was, although I was so scared of losing this opportunity, I was so brutally honest with myself, even when it hurt, that in both of my interviews and my polygraph, I expelled so much truth to them and candidness to them I sat here and pretty much and wrote my ticket out of here by telling you I messed up. And that was what they had loved so much in me was
makes sense.
this pureness that I had in me, that I cared more about doing the right thing than I had the selfishness of,
Which is probably exactly what they're looking for.
exactly.
Yeah.
And a lot of people give a lot of flack to the agency, and I get it. Our government's really, really gone a lot of different directions, but what I can say is the work that we do is so critical to why you and I get to sit here right now
Like
and
what?
even keeping
So
our.
were you a field agent?
I got.
So how does the agency work?
Yeah.
Without getting, I know you guys are allowed to say certain.
I'm still like in my cooling off period. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of things. We have jobs for everything. We have makeup artists. I mean, you want to be a makeup artist and you want like an impact, you can go be a makeup artist.
Is that the ones that are like making Biden's masks and
Maybe.
doing all that stuff? What does he not get the earlobe thing right?
Yeah, right. And the noses.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we have a whole like disguises team, because sometimes you need to alter your appearance so that way you can go in and collect information on things that are really critical. I mean, we have sleeper cells all over the country of businesses that look like businesses, but
Mattress
really,
firm.
yeah, right. Yeah. Have you seen the mattress
Can you
firm thing?
can you confirm this, that the mattress firm is 100% like money laundering?
I'm pretty sure it probably has something to do with the cartel, maybe somewhere in there. For
Never,
sure trafficking.
never anybody at a mattress firm.
There's not, right, but there's so many of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, things like that. I mean, there are active, like, people on a daily basis really trying to kill Americans day in and day out.
Sure.
And I understand some people don't totally like how we do it, but we operate in a way that we keep our country, and there's no other way to say it, we keep our country safe every day. There are almost attacks on our country every day, but because you don't see it and it's not in front of your face and it's not in the media, we want to pretend like it's not going on. The same way we want to pretend like sex trafficking isn't a thing, or child trafficking isn't a thing, or it's probably not going on in my neighborhood, right? When really down the street from you is ISIS, right? Like you're somebody, right? You don't, or is the cartel. We have them in Nampa. Like we know it. They know it. They know that we know. They don't care. They're here. So like our work is so powerful, and there are so many jobs and skill sets that you learn. And what's so great about them is they want you to learn it. As long as you are a good foundational person, they will teach you almost anything. I've learned so much from working there. I was 22. You think I had a whole lot of skill sets to bring to the table? But they saw my candidness, they saw my sacrifice, they saw my heart, my loyalty, my good nature, my determination, right? My ambition. They saw the core and my character of who I was as a person and said, we can teach you everything else that you need to know.
Yeah.
And that's one of the best things is they have a really good cycle program where they move people along, every 2 years almost, and put them into new positions to challenge them in their growth. And it doesn't matter if you don't know how to do it. If you've shown good track record of performance, then cool. You want to do this job? We'll teach you how to do this job. Yeah. They highly, highly support growth.
Can you talk about a little bit what you were doing in there?
I worked in investigations. So I started off in law enforcement, investigations. Yeah, finding.
What does that mean? Crooked cops or just law enforcement investigations in general? Were you investigating the law enforcement?
We investigated. No, I mean, we would investigate. We kept the employees clean and we kept the agency safe against people on the outside trying to attack. So, there's people that want to harm employees. I don't know if you're familiar, but like in 1993, there was that active shooter outside of headquarters gate. All the turning lanes, they only go left. So, those people sitting in those turning lanes are going to headquarters.
Okay.
There was a sleeper cell not too far outside headquarters. He was sitting collecting information on how he could essentially hurt government employees, CIA employees. It was pretty evident that there wasn't a lot of good control on that intersection. You could only go one way. So anybody sitting at that light, you knew that they were going to headquarters. Opens up fire on the whole line of cars, kills a multitude of people that day.
I've never heard of this.
Yeah, it's super sad. I've watched the video. We watch it in training. We talk about it often in the agency. They keep it a reminder of the things that happen, and it's a war. There's a war against us.
Oh, 100%.
And it's hard when there's a war against us from our foreign nationals, and then there's a war against us from our own people who don't understand what we're doing to keep us safe.
So that's what you were investigating? You were trying to find these
like
sleeper
like
cells in a way?
Yep. So people who are coming soliciting information, like there were times where I was able to collect information on somebody who is pretending to be, X person, but really they're working for this organization, and then they're routing that information back to that organization, and then we use that. We give it to then our teams. They build on that information, right? There's a whole web, and then we find out, cool, this person's actually connected to, this organization that is on the terrorist watch list or however.
I mean, how many? I don't even want to say hundreds. How many thousands of these people? I mean, now with their borders wide open,
it's insane. So many. You
can't. In your line of work and prior to our borders being open, I mean, I'm sure we just have red flags everywhere. How soon do you think it's going to be before shit just absolutely goes south here? Because do you see these people trying to protest the open border?
Yeah. Oh,
you
don't
see for asylum. It's not like you're seeing thousands of women and children crossing. They're all military age male from all these different countries.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
these organizations,
how fucked are we?
We're super fucked. They're absolutely taking advantage of this, and it's a waiting game. It's a waiting game.
Oh, for sure. They'll sit here for years building, collecting intel.
They're smart. I hate to say it, but our adversaries are really, really smart.
Is it they're smart
too,
or are we just fucking dumb
both.
and complacent because we live in the greatest country in the world and nobody's ever going to touch us again?
Right. And the way that our government is going, I will hope, praying for this next election, is really going to determine a lot. We're not, in my opinion, we're not in a good position. We're not in a good fighting position.
No.
We've removed from our military, we've removed funding, we've removed sources, we've removed from our law enforcement all over the country. Our abilities and our layers of protection in our country have significantly dwindled away. And then we remove the layers of protection, and then we offer the assets to the people who want to harm us, and it's truly just a waiting game. And I get into these conversations with people who come to see me at Athena for other things, and they sit there and they say, "Man, I know what's going to happen. I know the grid's going to get shut down. I work for these groups. I work for these organizations. I know what's going on behind closed doors. That's why I'm coming to you, because I want to make sure that I can protect myself and protect my family. Not when the government comes or our military comes, but when our neighbors come beating down your door because you have resources that they don't."
Yeah.
And they realized how significant things have changed. We saw it during COVID. We saw people get left without power, without water, without baby formula, without toilet paper, without basic necessities, and they started attacking each other.
It's funny you say this, because I feel that the old bait and switch, as everybody talks about these terrorist attacks, which is a huge thing. And COVID was a great learning tool if you were paying attention. And I remember showing my wife and kids 2 elderly women fist fighting. I'm sure it's on YouTube. They were fighting each other for a pack of toilet paper. And I sat my wife and my children down and I said, do you see these grandmas? They're at the point where they're fist fighting each other for toilet paper. What are our neighbors going to do when they know that we have food and water?
1,000%. That's what you need to fear now.
100%.
And we're being very naive to it.
Oh, I live for it.
Yeah.
All my neighbors,
Bye.
God,
Sorry.
God help their souls when shit hits the fan, because there's and I've had very uncomfortable talks with my wife.
Yeah.
In our plan when the grid goes out or if it goes out, and it's not going to be
It's a matter
pretty.
of time. Yeah, I think
It's
we're
not
definitely
gonna be
not
pretty.
living in the if anymore. It's definitely the when these things happen, and we're not trying to create like fear mongering. And I
No.
definitely it's hard sometimes to speak these truths because we see what happens with fear mongering. But like there was a attack a few months or last fall locally here, and I kicked myself because I wanted to say something so bad about it, and I didn't because.
What do you mean? Like what?
So there was an incident that happened at the village, and I talk about this sometimes like within clients because it's really hard, and you never want to misspeak, right? But I'm meeting somebody for lunch, and he was prior law enforcement in banking now, and it's a beautiful 80-degree day. Everyone's out playing by the fountain. And I see this guy walking through, and he's in trench coat, khaki pants, like hiking boots, a ski mask covering his entire head, face, nose, mouth, neck. The only thing that was exposed was his eyes, and he's carrying a small little white gift bag with like rose gold foil flower designs. And just everything out of sort, right? What are the first things that they teach us? Look for those anomalies.
Make it make sense.
It doesn't make sense. It's 80 degrees out. We're in. It's beautiful. It's hot, and you're covered head to toe. Okay, well, let me think about this. If it was a medical condition and it was the sun, you'd probably have sunglasses on. If it's a skin thing, your hands would be covered. If it was this, it'd probably be this. And I'm sitting here trying to justify why this is fine and why this is okay. And my meeting walks up, and we both, and as I go to say, did you see that guy? He goes, did you see that guy? And now I'm like, okay, so my senses
Other people are registering it too.
Yeah, thinking it too, right? He's law enforcement. Everybody else is they're just chilling. They're just going about their day. They don't even notice this guy. And I said, I think he's probing, because nobody attacks randomly. Yeah. You always probe the house. You know the house that you're breaking into. You know the people that you're attacking. You know the woman that you're attacking, right? So I think he's probing the village, and I tell him, and I say, this doesn't sit right with me. And I look around, and we're trying to find security, and we can't find security anywhere. We can't find anybody to report this to. And I'm like, so we talk about it, we sit down, and I'm just like, this doesn't feel right. I don't like this. And he agrees. So fast forward, I wanted to make a post about it. Hey, I think that something at the village is going to happen here soon, and here's why I think it. And then I stopped myself, because I'm like, no, I'm just being paranoid. I remember, a day that I thought there was a bomb on my car, and I lost my shit. And it was just the beeping countdown at the crosswalk for like ADA.
Okay.
The beep, 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 right? And I go crazy. And I remember these times where I had become so paranoid that I was like unable to live in normal society. Okay. Now I'm over here. Oh, I'm doing it again. It's fine. It's the village. But I call my friends, I call my close friends, and I let them know, hey, if you're going to go to the village, carry or don't go for the next couple weeks. I just don't have a good feeling. Here's what I think. And 10 days later, a couple stores get robbed. A guy steals a security vehicle, flees. A woman gets killed in a car accident because of it. ISP chases this other guy to west. And it was this whole big thing. It was awful. A woman literally died this day, and nobody knows about it, and no one's talked about it. And it was a friend that, in law enforcement calls me, and she's like, oh my God, you were right. And I was like, right about what? And she's like, this just went down at the village. And I was like, what? And I couldn't wrap my head around it. And I'm like, what if I had said something? What if I had tried to do more? Could this have been prevented? but what if I tried to do more and I was wrong? Well, now I'm just the crazy lady, right? Throwing out.
I think that's what it comes down to, is
Isn't that
people won't say things because they're worried about what other people think or will say.
1,000%. Yep. And that's the society that we're now
Living in, for sure.
and we're creating that. And I hate, and I've thought about it so much, and it's not my responsibility to carry, right? Like, it's not my burden to carry, but it is in the sense of it is up to us to keep our society safe. Like, we are all contributing factors to what happens around us. And if we think that these things aren't happening in our backyard, we're just being very naive.
For sure.
And, there was that, had I said something, would anything have changed? Like, I tried to contact somebody, I couldn't get through to anybody. And now, some business owners have contacted me and they're like, oh, we'd love to do training. We'd love to prepare, but they don't have the funds to pay for it themselves. The security company won't pay for it themselves. They're just trying to shove it under the rug and pretend like this thing, didn't really happen.
Because when there's a scare like that, then revenue goes down.
Exactly. And it's such a family-oriented
all
place.
about money.
Why would anybody want, to know that? So it's things like that. And I hate being stuck in that place of, am I being paranoid? Am I being overly paranoid because of what life has taught me? Am I that jaded woman that just thinks all men are bad and scary because of what these other bad, scary men have done to me? Or am I, going to, be decisive and learn and heal and take the information that I have that's in front of me and make educated decisions? We're not making it any easier on ourselves.
No, not at all. So how long were you with the agency?
Almost 7 years.
Why'd you leave?
Well, I was living in that mindset of I can do it all on my own.
Okay.
And not having a family and relationships with people was really all I knew. I'd moved 12 times in 6 years.
Good Lord.
I didn't have a lot of friends. I never really was exposed to like what love from another person was without it being in exchange for something.
Got it.
So I had convinced myself that I wasn't deserving of a family. I would never get to be a wife. I would never get to be a mother. The only thing I could offer society was my skill sets and my being really good at my career and my job. And somewhere, along the line, God started to kind of change my heart of having these desires of wanting to be a wife and wanting to have a family and wanting to know my neighbors' names and feeling kind of like what your wife went through, in a sense of you're trying to do this thing, but internally you keep getting pulled over here to where you're biologically more, led to.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say an opportunity, but there was like a shift in life where I had met somebody and, they had shown me what a normal life could be like.
Okay.
And that was here in Boise. And it was the first time that I started to feel like, okay, well, maybe I have more to offer than just my career and what I was good at. And I was up for an assignment that would have taken me, away for a while with really limited communication and not a whole lot. I had to choose. It wasn't going to be both. And I just remember I prayed and prayed and prayed, and I woke up one day and I just, something deep inside of me told me that this is what I needed to do. I needed to leave and I needed to move to Boise.
Really?
And I'll never be able to understand why and how things happened the way that they did. But I was so sure about it, and I will never take that back. Like, I knew hand over foot that this was what I was supposed to do, and it was really, really hard. But I choose the relationship, and I resign from my career. I resign from everything, and I was in a really good place. I'd worked really hard to develop everything that I had developed. It was good, and I come out here, and I pretty much quit cold turkey. I had worked at I was at headquarters, and 2 days later I was in Boise, Idaho. Didn't know, really anybody. I just had this relationship, and I think there was a level of running too. I will say I don't think I made the healthiest decisions at the time because of the things that I had experienced for so long.
How was the agency? So I don't mean to interrupt. How was the agency that compared to the military as far as work environment? I mean, did you experience any of this? It was worse?
When you have, so the military,
Jesus.
I'll probably catch a lot of shit for this.
Fuck it.
The military.
Welcome to my world.
Yeah, you have a lot of people who are doing these really important jobs, but most of them aren't that smart.
Facts.
Right? You just have a lot of people who, like, they did this because they really wanted to serve their country. They did this because they couldn't do anything else. They did this because they barely
100%.
graduated. I'm sorry, but that's just the truth. Let's just call it what it is.
That's the military.
the
That's
military.
why I got out.
Right.
Yeah.
But then you have the CIA, where you have really important jobs, but you have really, really smart people doing those really important jobs. You have high-functioning people, and you have a lot of alphas. But then there's the few that slip through. Probably shouldn't be there. So now you have this, whose dick is bigger contest on steroids, like on a whole other level.
Just because of the
Because
agency.
it's the pride. I'm the tip of the spear. I'm the best there is. There's nobody better than me. But now you have everybody who thinks that they're the best and who may be the best, all competing to try to constantly be the best because we're the best organization in the entire world. And there's a lot of pride and a lot of ego. And then when you have that, and because now take that and take what you spoke about with the military of men doing those jobs and why they shouldn't be exposed to women, right? Now take that and magnify it. Do all of those same jobs and all of these really critical, important things, and now put it in an environment with women too, trying to do these things. So now I'm young and I learned from over here. I was not going to mess around with anybody. I was just going to keep my head down. I was going to do what I would needed to do. And there's always one. There's this guy that was interested in whatever he was interested in. No. I just want to do my job. Like, I'm not, interested in friends or any of these things. I'm just going to keep my head down. And it turned into this because he couldn't have me. Nobody could have me. So then the rumors start. And when I say, like, awful things, dude, he spread this rumor. I got this nickname, and it literally makes my stomach turn, like, thinking back to it. And they called me Waffle Butt. And I didn't get it at first until months down the road where somebody finally told me the truth. They called me Waffle Butt for saying that I bent over and took it through the fence in Guantanamo Bay, that I fucked terrorists.
Jesus.
Like, people who literally killed Americans. I'm over here fighting for my life, fighting for my country, sacrificing everything to do this job. And the people to my left and right are saying that I had sex with terrorists, real terrorists. People who are
lobbing heads
literally killed Americans. And that was what I was demeaned down to. And it was so, I couldn't even wrap my head around it.
How did that feel when you found that out?
I was beyond embarrassed because I can't understand how you can be that low of a human to do something like that to somebody. So when you have that, copy paste with everyone around you, because everyone's fighting for the top, and you have these people, but yeah, I'll be honest, there's a level of like a lack of maybe integrity and character at the same time that you have to be able to do certain kinds of jobs. It made me sick because I was the little girl, like, yeah, I didn't have a good childhood, but my room was covered, not in like posters of the Backstreet Boys, like my room was covered in American flags. I had a huge American flag on my ceiling. I had American flags on my walls. I was so patriotic. For my 5th grade talent show, I sang I'm Proud to Be an American in a friend's old army greens.
So this hit really hard.
All I knew was I loved my country.
And now you're getting accused of having sex with terrorists. Not accused, rumors.
Yeah, rumors, which obviously didn't fucking happen, but just for you to be that, and then people believed it.
Is that even a thing? Are women over there doing this?
No, that's not even, first of all, it's not even possible. But second of all, No, just
So
absolutely hard
100%
no.
just
100%
complete.
hard no. It's just people being naive and stupid because they have nothing else to do. There's all these fake profiles. I just posted about these fake profiles
Yeah.
of me, right? There's these fake profiles. There's this fake Facebook page saying that I was in like Syria at the time, and some guys found it and literally went around telling people I was claiming stolen valor because I made a Facebook page saying I had all these Facebook pages that I was in all these different parts of the country. Are you that fucking dumb? It's not even proper English.
Yeah.
So like I literally get called into an office one day to get spoken to about these things that I'm not even doing. Somebody spread a rumor that I was, this is while I was in the academy. This is actually really funny. I'm in the academy, right? We're in the range every day. We're in the mats every day. We're working out. We're getting our asses handed to us on a daily basis. And I'm outperforming a lot of my peers. I won like the top physical fitness award. I got like whatever. I did well. And somebody spreads this rumor that I was pregnant with a captain's baby who was married, mind you, right? I hadn't even met this dude yet, but somehow I got pregnant. And what's funny to me is the people that were saying I was pregnant during the time I was pregnant, I was kicking their asses in the academy. Oh, so, and obviously I wasn't pregnant, but it's just kind of funny that you're that dumb that you're sitting here trying to like put down a woman while she's performing better than you.
Yep.
Pregnant, right? Like seriously. And then when I don't have a baby, I got an abortion, which that was really painful to me because of my religious views and where I stand with Christ. So now to be told, well, she had an abortion, right? It was all these crazy ass things. And what's so great is it was never about my performance. I never, ever gave anybody a reason to say anything about my quality and level of performance in my work. All they could do was find holes to poke in being a woman or using my body or sleeping around or any of these other things.
Do you think a lot of this was brought on because you're outperforming people?
There's that. There's being young. There's if you're just a high functioning woman, I think in any career field,
People are just threatened.
they're gonna feel threatened by that. I wish I knew where it really came from. There's just unhealthy people. If they can't have you, nobody can have you. If you're gonna outwork them, you're gonna come for their job. People don't want other people to be successful.
Absolutely not.
I
say it all the time. In the veteran community, nobody hates on successful veterans more than veterans.
Yep, absolutely. And
I say it all the time.
No different when you get into these organizations, these high-level organizations.
No,
It's
like
sickening.
we're all together, but nobody wants to see you better than you. Like, I mean, it's just blows
Very
my mind.
competitive.
Very weird mindset that we get involved in.
Yeah. So I moved on to do other things. There were definitely times where I chose assignments over other assignments because I wanted to get away. I feel like my entire life I just spent running and running and running. And I got to, that's where I found a love for neuroscience and it was other people outside of my core center of influence that found me and pulled me into other projects because they saw my capabilities. It wasn't everybody in the agency.
Yeah.
There were phenomenal people that I worked with the agency. And when I started getting to work with GRS, those guys are like no other. The kindness and respect that they showed for me when it came to training me.
What's the GRS?
GRS is our a global response staff.
Okay.
That's your 13 hours guys.
Oh, okay, yeah.
13 hours, like Chris Pronto. So I wanted to go GRS. Women aren't on GRS. They're not, that's where I was like, I can do it. Put me in, coach. But I also think it's, it makes sense why it's so top of the spear. A woman has never been able to make it because it's so extreme. But I got to train with them for other things. And when I got to train with them, they didn't look at me as a young female. They looked at me as an equal. Just, we need you to do your job and we need you to do your job well.
Which is how it should be.
Exactly.
If you can't hang, then we find somebody to replace you.
Right. Yep. And that's where a lot of my skill sets really went and increased. And I started to believe more in myself because I'd had so many people trying to put me down. And I was like, I'm like, no, I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to prove you wrong. Right. So getting to work with other high functioning professionals that were really good at their job and having these mentors, some women who did some badass shit, like have them by my side and kind of start pulling me, taking me under their wing. That's where I started to gain more of the confidence and heal from. It doesn't matter what all these other people say and how they're going to stop you in your career. At the end of the day, it's still up to you, and go find and seek those people who do believe in you, because there are people that believe in you. There are people who are going to see you for you. And
You
then
just got to filter through the bullshit.
100%. So it's a great, amazing place to work with bullshit. And there's just always going to be bullshit. And it's just a matter of, can you handle it? And lots of people quit. There were tons of people who quit over the years.
Pretty high nutrition rate, cycle rate at the agency.
Yes and no. There's your people that either quit early, and then there's the people who are there for 50 years. There's once you kind of get past the pinnacle, then you're really in. And I thought I was going to be in for life, 100%. But then,
Boys.
I meet this guy, and I come to Boise, and that did not turn out how I expected.
It never does.
Pretty blindsided in a lot of ways, but that was really hard. I lost.
But that got you here.
It did.
What was hard about that? So, because you gave up everything?
I gave up everything to come here for somebody.
So
And
did you regret it, or were you just like, fuck? I mean, it's kind of a tough one. I mean, you lived your whole life to become an agent, and then you give it up for a guy, and then that doesn't work out.
Yeah.
There's no going back. You couldn't have been like, oh, fuck, I fucked up. You guys take me back.
I could. Yeah, they actually gave me a 12-month hiatus, and they're like, you go have fun in Idaho. You just call us when you're ready to come back.
And that's not an option anymore?
I just, it's kind of funny when you get a taste of freedom, like real freedom, freedom that I had been fighting for people to have, and then I actually had it for the first time.
Not so bad.
I was like, wow, this is really great. Like, I get to make my own decisions. I don't have to ask for permission if I want to take a vacation somewhere. I don't have to live under a magnifying glass all the time. And that happened.
Everything.
Yeah, and I got that taste of freedom right after I got divorced. When I got divorced, that was because my marriage wasn't healthy. And I had went, cold turkey from this career, high pace, high dynamic, to cutting it all off, and all of a sudden I'm in a house, and I have no friends, and I have no family, and I have no stimulus.
In a state that you don't even know.
In a state that I don't know anybody, and then I get myself into a relationship that, was very controlling, and maybe in his mind was, just try to say maybe was trying to protect me, but didn't maybe know how. To just losing all of that. And then in order to get divorced, my attorney was like, you can either fight all of this and take what's yours and go through this whole thing. And if you want consequences, then, we'll be in this for about 3 years, or you could just give him everything he's asking for and I'll be done with this.
Was this the guy that you moved here for? Okay. Yeah. So you moved here, got married, then got divorced.
And got divorced. And my attorney was like, we'll be done in 30 days if you want to just be done, but this is where you're at. And it was really, really hard for me to wrap my head around how somebody could be okay, like, taking so much from me when I had already given up my entire life for them. And I was sick to my stomach over that, but I just trusted that God brought me here for a reason, and I knew that, and I knew I was where I needed to be, but I did want to leave. I thought about it, and I realized that if I left Idaho, that I was still allowing him or somebody to control my life, that I was going to leave and run because I felt like I shouldn't be here because I didn't have anything here. And I honestly just had made the decision I was going to stop running. All I did my entire life was run. If this wasn't, if this wasn't, fill in the blank, fine, I'll just go start somewhere else. I'll take a new assignment. I'll, work harder. So I made the decision to stay. And I didn't know what I was going to do with my life, and I had no idea. I mean, I had my entire career, and I felt like it was all for nothing because I actually applied to jobs locally, and nobody would hire me. And I had this great kick-ass resume, in my opinion. I'm like, look at all these things I did. Like, I'm a hard worker. I'm, great. And I don't know if it's like people see those words, like those 3 little letters, and they're just like, yeah, we're not messing with her or what. But, and I also didn't know how to acclimate. I had no idea. I'd gotten out of the military and the agency and a divorce all within like 17 months of each other. Jesus. It was a lot in a little bit. And I was
It's a lot to process.
I was highly, highly suffering from PTSD. I went into behavioral health with the VA. They put me on, I was on 13 different medications.
VA, number one killer of veterans.
Yep. I didn't know how to function. I didn't know how to acclimate. I didn't know how to communicate with normal people. Like, and then I was in this relationship that wasn't helping. It was making it worse. And it was one of the most difficult times of my life. Definitely was being here in Boise and feeling like I had spent my entire life fighting for a future that I had just thrown away, and I had no future, and I had no idea what I was going to do moving forward. And I had nothing to offer again, right? Because I gave my life to my country, and past that, I don't have normal civilian skill sets. No, I'm sorry, I don't know how to use a scheduling software. Yeah. No, I'm sorry, I don't know how to use Google Drive, because we use proprietary systems within the government and the military, right? No, but I can figure it out. I'm a quick learner. Teach me anything, show me anything, and I'll do it, and I'll excel at it. And that's kind of where Athena came into the picture.
Let's jump into this. So Athena tactics. Hold on, I gotta sneeze. I'm trying to fight it.
Let it out.
So, Athena tactics. Well, real quick, isn't the government amazing how they demand so much from us, and then when it's time to go, they're like, "Have a nice life," and just close the door behind you.
I don't even have a resume. They wouldn't even approve my resume to go out. Yeah,
it's almost like
nothing.
the Beetlejuice scene, and he like opens a door and steps out and and he's in like the desert and he's just standing there like that's how I feel most veterans are, or just government employees, because especially the military, you're literally told when to wake up, when to go to chow, when to go to work, when to go home, when to go to bed.
What to wear.
Yep. You have a guaranteed paycheck. They set you up, if you're lucky and have a good command, they'll set you up and show you how to pay your bills. And then you live this robotic life doing what you feel is right. And then you're like, I'm going to try to better myself. And that's why I feel a lot of guys just fail. And then that pressure becomes so much because one, their identity is nothing besides being a veteran. And two, they don't know how to, instead of them adapting, they expect society to adapt because I'm a veteran.
Right.
And then you have all that pressure and that weight, and it just builds, because life in the real world is not easy. The military is easy. I tell people like a fucking monkey could be a Marine.
Super easy.
It's literally you march them to chow, you march them home, you march them to work, you march them home, and everything is laid out. Here's your agenda from Monday to Friday. Okay, don't fuck up on the weekends. Like that's your only responsibility, is to not get in trouble from Friday afternoon or evening to Sunday evening. Like that's the only worry you have most of the time. And then when we get out, and it's just like, well, fuck, now what? Yeah. Now what? Like.
And then most people can't empathize or sympathize with you. And then most people, honestly, nowadays are just tired of hearing it. Like,
for sure. We're 20 plus years in the Afghans. Like nobody cares anymore.
Like, nobody cares about PTSD. Oh, you have PTSD. Oh yeah, you and everybody else. Or you suffer
I think a big thing behind that is every swinging dick now has PTSD.
Yeah.
Military wise. And I know everybody's got their own issue, but like we see things like, a 7-ton tire fell on my ankle. I had PTSD. I'm 100% disabled. I'm like,
I have an attorney right now trying to fight my disability claim. And we were talking about the PTSD thing. And he's like, and I was like, well, like there's this thing. And like, we never really got into it. And he's like, Amanda, I'm just going to stop you right there. He said, they don't care whether you were blown up, you watched a friend get blown up, you were raped, you were, burned bodies. He's like, or you fucking stubbed your toe. He said, if it affects you on a daily basis, emotionally, whether you stubbed your toe or you killed somebody, they are literally going to evaluate you exactly the same.
Exactly the same.
And I was just, my head exploded in that moment, because I was like, oh my gosh, like that's crazy. That it literally doesn't matter. They don't actually care what you've gone through or what you've done.
It's in numbers.
It's an algorithm. That's
100%.
it.
It's 100% an algorithm.
When I had to dive into the algorithm on how like disability is given to veterans,
plug and play.
It was sickening to me. And they gave me 0% for all my physicalities. And I was like, what? Like all my MRI report, like all of this stuff, and I'm worth 0% to you. Like I'm in physical pain every day of my life, but it's fine. It's fine. Like it pains me for veterans. We have all these organizations trying to help them. Half the problem is veterans don't want to help themselves.
For sure.
That's like a big number one, is we have to put our pride aside and say, okay, I want a better life. And
I know so
can
many
do this.
so many dudes that are just
Won't do
like,
it. Won't get disability.
I'll ask
their
them, I'm like, what's your VA
egos.
rating? Oh, I don't have VA rating. I'm
Yeah,
like,
I
how long
don't
you been
need
out?
that.
Oh, 10 years. I'm like, you're an idiot.
Yep.
You're an idiot. Especially if you have any deployment time, you're not filing for the VA. You are a fucking idiot.
Take it.
Especially now we're sending so much money to goddamn Ukraine and everywhere else.
Oh my God.
If we're just printing it, print my money.
Yeah, give me change my 0%. I mean, I have 70% now, but like,
give me my money.
Yeah, like
that's
do
how I
something
look
about
at it.
Take it. And I was there for a little bit. At one point, I was like, I wouldn't get disability. Like,
oh, I was,
fuck them. I'm not going to take $1 from them, you know? Yeah. And I definitely had that. And then I was like, somebody changed my mind about it. We had a conversation. I was like, no, you're right. I'm like, they didn't protect me. They failed to do their job. They put me in this situation or whatever the case is. And the government's giving all this money to everybody else. The government's passing out money for COVID and for welfare and this and that.
For
like,
sure.
Well, fuck it. Let's just, so share some
mine?
over here. Right.
That was my aha moment to file my VA claim. I was talking to this vet and he was 100% disabled, making bank off of back knee. He had horrible acne on his back. And he was telling me about this. And I was like, how? What the? And he's never deployed in his life. And I was like, blink, blink, blink. Like,
my attorney better come and clutch.
I was like, you were 100% disabled because of your back knee? He's like, I didn't have it before I joined. And then, I was sweating all the time. And I was like, oh, okay. I'm filing something. Yeah. Like I have to. So Athena Tactics.
Well, hold on. If you're listening, we encourage you to go. Just do it. Just
get it.
In. Just file it. What's the worst that's gonna happen? They say no, and you don't get anything. Get an attorney.
And then you get an attorney and fight it.
You get tax-free money for hopefully the rest of your life. Just do
Worst
it.
Case,
Put your damn pride.
it's a
Stop
mortgage.
Being a pussy.
It's your mortgage payment for
right?
free. Like that's how I look at it. Like, cool. My mortgage is covered forever.
Yeah.
Like, you're welcome. Yeah, thank me for my service. I earned that shit.
Do it.
It's crazy to me, the vets, and then they bitch about the system. I'm like, bro, you're not even in the system. Like, how are you bitching about it? So, yeah, it's wild. And then what you hear about other dudes, I don't know. When it came down to it, and then now I look at like who we're giving money to and welfare and the people that they just. I mean, money has no value. I'm one of those people. I'm a conspiracy. Money is a made up thing, and we've been brainwashed to obsess and live our lives around it.
It's a control. We're just being controlled. That's it. We're just ants.
100%. And so I'm like, well, if they're going to offer it, like these people during the COVID relief shit, I was like, fuck it, file for that. They're giving it out to everybody. Oh, well, the future generation, they're just printing money. Our kids are fucked anyways. I'm going to take my $2,500. I'd have when it comes to the government, I'm going to take whatever I can.
I was an essential employee, so I only got like $700. I'm like, oh, this is cool. I'm still working when everybody else isn't.
You're not that important.
So I don't get that much money. Cool.
You're not that important.
Nope.
So Athena Tactics.
Yeah.
Now you have to shift gears because you just gave up your whole career.
Yep. I lost my retirement, my savings, health insurance, right? So for my entire life, I had that job security, I had health insurance. Really, I had it made. I had 2 retirements set up at an early age. Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking. I think it was like all of the years of trauma had just like whoosh come together.
Okay.
So now I'm out of it and I'm free. And I had to sell my house. I lost everything. And my mom had just moved here 3 months prior. So now I have this, in some regards, a stranger that I'm like developing this relationship with who.
Okay. So.
Mom enters the picture.
So during this whole time in the military and through at the agency, you still don't have a relationship with your mom?
We had a I wouldn't call it a relationship. It was, we didn't really talk often. I would go home sometimes, and when I would go back to New York to like get my hair done or see friends or something, I would like stay at my parents' house, but we didn't like have much of a relationship yet.
Okay.
There was a lot of turmoil and a lot of fighting through those years, and my mom was still needing to heal from her own things, and she had gotten into a relationship that like wasn't bad by any means. He was not a bad man. He was also in law enforcement and just didn't maybe know how to.
I feel like, no offense to cops.
Say it.
No offense to cops. I feel law enforcement is one of the biggest red flags. Marines, law enforcement, and then everything else underneath
SEALs.
that. SEALs.
SEALs, definitely.
Any special forces dude is
special
to the top of the list. Any alpha-driven military field.
Because no
red flags.
emotions.
Stay away from all of us.
Rub dirt in it. No emotions. You're not allowed to cry. You're not like, you're just so hard all the time. So like she would be emotional and he would like, why are you crying? Like, suck it up, right? So there was a whole thing there.
We're gonna come up with a list of dudes to stay away from.
Firefighters, yeah, just add them all
Yeah,
in.
but they're always the best looking ones, I feel like.
Yeah, they can. Yeah. So anyway, you fast forward through there, and now she ends up getting divorced. Well, I'll back up a little bit. I did leave for a little bit, and I went and I worked a COVID response team in Manhattan.
Okay.
During COVID, and that was kind of like, I had to fight my ex-husband tooth and nail on doing it, but I also needed a job and I needed income, and I loved it. I loved getting to do what we did. But my mom was a paramedic, so I brought her into the contract because I was in New York.
Okay.
So that was our first, like, we were together,
Working together
for months. We started to hash out conversations, mostly just 7 months of fighting, but it was fine.
Okay.
So then fast forward.
But it was probably fighting that was needed.
Oh, absolutely.
Voicing.
Absolutely. Yep. Okay. Things coming out. Her trying to process through things that she never got to process through. And my mom went through a lot too. I mean, we were homeless. We were living on the streets. We were living in cars. We were in shelters. Like she had it rough too. And I will always say, I think she just did her best to survive too.
For sure.
I think she was 20 when she had my older sister, and she was 25 when she had me. Like, I could not. I'm 32 and I don't have kids, and I can't imagine going through that. So then fast forward, she ends up getting divorced and comes out here, and we're kind of working on developing a relationship. And that was a big thing, watching. It wasn't just how I was being treated in my house, but watching how my mother was being treated in my house was like oh, hold on a second, because it's different when you watch it happen to somebody else. So now she's out here. Now I have her, and I'm like, what am I supposed to do? So we got an apartment, and we squeezed into this little apartment, and I sold most of my belongings, what was left, and trying to figure out like what the next step was. And while this is happening, I start instructing as a favor for a local male firearms instructor.
Okay.
And this was my first exposure to the civilian training market. I didn't know anything about anything. In my mind, I was naive, and I'm like, everybody gets this amazing training that I got. And I start teaching his women's classes, women's basic pistol class, right? And I was like mortified by what I watched in this whole experience, and just
how so? Like just handle it, safety?
Just like the PowerPoint I remember had.
Oh, it was the curriculum?
Yeah, the curriculum was trash.
Okay.
A woman in a bikini, an American flag, like it's, just, I don't know what's happening here. So then some other stuff, some other things happened, went down. I just could not get on board. And, whatever, no, I'm not going to say no fault to him. Like, this is just what our industry has ingrained. This is just how we sexualize women. You see it all over Instagram, these gun companies just posting, half naked pictures of women trying to sell products.
Gun buddies
right?
and boot baits. Yep.
There's a lot of them. So like, that's what everyone is taught. Somewhere along the way, the industry has done it to themselves.
For sure.
So I got super frustrated over that, the crap training and quality of what was happening. And I'm getting fired up, and I'm like, this is BS. I'm like, if I was going to do this, this is the way I would do it. I would do this, 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 and this. And I had a friend that was like, so why don't you do it? And I was still mourning the loss of my entire life and my career. And I could not, it was hard enough for me to teach, because I was like, I'm never stepping back into this world again. I have to just separate it, because it hurt so badly. It was like I had lost a relationship.
Yeah.
So then while that's happening, and I'm like, starting to develop a community here, because I didn't have a community before that. I was pretty much locked in my house. I'm making friends, and I have women coming to me, and they kind of are hearing some of my story, and they're like, how did you get divorced? How did you get out of it? How did you handle this? How did you handle that? Hey, can you take me to the range? Hey, I heard you used to work for the CIA, or you did this, or you did that, or you were in law enforcement. Like, can you teach me this, this, and this? And I was like, oh, this is a lot. And I just didn't really know what I was supposed to be doing with everything at the time. And I just knew I wanted to be, I was like, I don't want to just be a firearms instructor. Like, that's not a living. That's not a life. And it was these different things that were happening at the time, this crossover from enough women coming to me, asking me to help them with whatever the situation was that they were in, or teach them this skill set. And also battling with the shame and guilt that I experienced of the domestic violence and like on how you can be so equipped and educated and trained, and yet you still find yourself in these situations. And that goes back to the multitude of situations and violent encounters I found myself in over the years between the military, the agency, childhood, relationships, that you think that because you're in it or you've gone through it, that it's not going to happen to you again. And then you realize that's not the case. Yeah. And there is this cyclical pattern that happens, and there's this stress response that happens in the body. And if we can't prevent this from happening, once it starts, that cycle is most likely going to repeat itself.
Okay.
And then the post-trauma of helping women acclimate out of domestic violence, out of violent encounters, is really, really critical too. And nobody really talks about the pre and the post. We really just talk about the time, like what's happening currently. So I knew that if I wanted to make a difference and acknowledge the fact that, yes, I had on multiple occasions a lot of training and I still found myself in these situations. What about the women that don't have any training and any education? And my heart went out to the situations that they found themselves in.
That's got to be kind of hard because, I mean, you got to look at yourself in the mirror and be like, I should know how to handle this. This should never happen to me. Being military, a veteran,
all of it. I've had a Navy SEAL friend look at me in the face and say, how did you let that happen to you? I had another dude, no, Amanda, a couple months ago, no, you allowed that to happen. And I'm just like, I didn't allow anything. I didn't let this happen to me. Like, you don't let, it's like, and it's so frustrating because I'm like, how do we break that mindset? But there's so many people out there that will say, you let this happen, you allowed this to happen. And that's the problem. Women are so kind and trusting and loving, graceful creatures. Yes, oftentimes we invite it into our lives, unbeknownst to us. It's typically through somebody that you know, you have a relationship with. It's a husband, it's a brother, it's an uncle, it's a friend, it's a boyfriend, it's a son, it's somebody, a friend of a friend, your husband's best friend, whatever, that these things happen from. It's a supervisor that you trusted very closely. We invite it into our lives unbeknownst to us, and then we are faulted for it. But what are we supposed to do? Because the latter is being jaded and distant and untrusting and accusatory, right? And we start putting up these walls, and now we're these jaded, broken, baggage-filled women. Which one is it? We don't, you have to make the choice. Yeah. So you can either like move through and hope that this person's not going to be bad, right?
And how long does it take for somebody to change?
Right.
If they ever change.
So I didn't want to develop that mindset of being jaded, and and then, these things happen. So I really, really, really suffered with a lot of shame and guilt, thinking that, just being embarrassed, and especially to have those type of comments. Amanda, how did you, of all people, like, are you kidding me, girl?
Yeah.
I've seen what you can do, and how did you let this happen to you, right?
But that should show if it could happen to you, it can
exactly.
happen to anybody.
And that was what I needed to get over. I had to get over myself and realize that, yes, if it could happen to me and it could happen to other badass, awesome women that I know, then it definitely is going to happen to women who don't have these skill sets, don't have this training, don't have this education, and then women who just think, oh, if the time comes, I'll be able to know what to do. But I promise you, you just don't. It's not naturally ingrained in us.
Yeah.
So when the vision for Athena came, it was, well, how can I equip women to protect themselves, not only physically through lethal and non-lethal measures, right? But how can I equip women to protect themselves from mental abuse, from emotional abuse, from spiritual abuse, spiritual warfare, from the things that we experience not only in our relationships, but from friendships, from families, in the workplace, the bullying. I've dealt with more bullying and harassment in my entire life probably than I've dealt with anything else. And that has done the most damage to me, more than any physical hurt that I have ever experienced from a person. The things that have been said about me, the things that, being in a relationship and having somebody tell you that, you haven't done anything with your life. That's nothing. Or getting a job and being told.
Do you think he was threatened?
I have no idea, because it's something that I've experienced multiple times. My last boyfriend said that the only reason I got a job was because not nice reasons. Oh, it's just you're just pretty. Yeah. It's just because you know somebody. You didn't actually earn it. Men actually have to climb up the ladder. You don't even have to work for it.
Yeah.
Like, okay, because everything that I've done in life I haven't had to work for? Are you kidding me? Like, just to constantly be put down that nothing I've ever done is good enough for literally anybody, that it's always something else. You're always missing something. It's really, really hard to fight that fight. And then now I end up in an industry that I'm surrounded by men still.
This isn't a tough industry to be a professional woman in either.
No, not when all your competitors are men.
I don't mess with the 2A world as much anymore. But the early days, it was how I grew.
Yeah.
My social, I was just buried into it, and it is definitely, it's an interesting world.
It's brutal. It's super cutthroat.
So now that you're doing that and you're in it and you're focusing, I have so many questions with the Athena tactics. So now first let's get into your programs of what you're offering for women. I know you probably work with men as well, but you mainly focus on women, and you talk physical training, firearms.
Yeah, we teach everything from, so when I had that vision for what I wanted it to look like I kind of created this pathway of, okay, what's the preventative pieces? Well, there's situational awareness. Well, what's situational awareness? It's observation skills. It's critical thinking skills. It's being able to identify the situation that you're in and the forces that are moving around you, and then be able to predict the outcomes. And then based off those outcomes, your critical thinking skills, how are you going to navigate through those situations?
When a situation occurs.
And or how do you prevent those situations? How do you
Which is probably the most, I feel people always train for the situation.
Yeah.
You don't see a lot of people training to avoid a situation.
Yep. Deter, avoid, de-escalate, get out of there, right? Get off the X. Yep. Yes, exactly.
I tell my kids all the time, get off the X.
Get off the X.
Shit happens, get off the X.
Yep. So we take them through that series. And then there's, okay, now you're in it. That stuff didn't work for whatever reason. Now we're in it.
So your class they're series based.
Yeah, it's all program-based and series-based. So we offer private lessons, workshops, seminars. So there's the educational piece, and then there's the physical piece. So yes, we teach the firearms. We teach how to handle the gun. We do a firearms discovery class, which is free to women to just kind of figure out, like, I've never done anything with firearms. I don't own one. I've never touched one. I've never fired one. It's something that I would love to be able to protect myself, but I don't even know where to start.
And you're hosting free classes for that?
Yeah, they're called our firearms discovery. Yep, they're free.
And that's
to the
just
public.
like an intro.
It's an intro. They come in, we educate them on firearm safety. Okay, look, you don't even have to, know how to use a gun. But let's just say you're around one day, your kid brings one home from school, something. Do you just know the basic safety rules? Loading, unloading, exactly. Okay. How to clear the gun, make that safe, and then what? We take them through nomenclature, understanding how the gun cycles, trying to remove the fear of if a gun's just sitting on the table or your husband has one, holstered in his nightstand, is it just going to go off, right? If you decided that you wanted to carry, what does that look like on the safety side? We talk about stigmas. We take questions. We kind of try to create an open forum. Hey, what are the stigmas? What are the fears? What are the questions that you have? What are the things that society has put into your mind around firearms, around carrying, around having a gun in your home? And then we start listing these out. And then we take the class through answering these types of questions and just informing them on what training actually looks like, what high quality training looks like, understanding that you cannot just take one lesson or one women's basic pistol class and know everything. So we don't do one-time lessons. All of our programs are curated specifically for the client.
That's smart.
They're custom. It's a journey that you have to go through, and we take you through everything, developing muscle memory, developing fine motor skills. That's where I get to combine the neuroscience side of things and start developing those neural pathways so that way in a fight, flight, or freeze stress response, your brain can stay in collecting information, analyzing the situation, being able to make decisions while your body can stay in execution mode, whether that is physically picking up your phone and calling 911, it's grabbing your keys, it's hitting the unlock button, it's grabbing a gun, it's grabbing, a taser, whatever your tool is, a tool of anything, right? Not getting in freeze mode. Yeah. And we take them
Which
through
a lot of people don't talk about that. You always hear fight or flight.
Yep.
But I feel a huge one is probably more than flight, maybe, I don't know the statistics on it, is freeze.
It's
People-
100%. You probably get 80% freeze.
Yeah. People just
hand
have
over
no,
foot.
well, they have no idea how to process the situation. They don't even know the situation they're in half the
Their
time.
body has nothing to pull from.
Yep.
It's not, we aren't born, there's like your natural instincts and there's your learned behaviors. Protecting yourself is a learned behavior. It's not an instinct. The instinct is knowing that you're in danger and that you should do something. The learned behavior is what you actually do that results in that outcome. If you don't know the difference and you don't prep for that, then when the situation or the time comes, you're just going to freeze because that's what your nervous system knows how to do. So we try to introduce these programs in a way that's not intimidating for women. But the other part of it is, how do we create the environment for women to feel comfortable coming to that's not intimidating, it's not masculine, it's not guns all over the walls and industrial and black and dark, and you walk into a gun range and there's just gear and stuff everywhere that you don't know what any of it is.
I can see how it could be very intimidating for somebody that's
Super
brand new to
intimidating.
it.
It's super intimidating for me sometimes to walk into these places because they don't know who I am or anything. So I get the experience that a woman gets. I just know what's going on actually behind closed doors and how I'm treated. It's so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So I had this vision of, well, how do I create a space and an atmosphere for women to get to come that mimics something that we love. And the thing that I kept going back to was like a spa. When women get to go to the spa, they are so excited. They're at peace. They're calm. Their walls come down. They're ready to unveil. It hits all the senses. You hear the calming music or the water flowing. It smells good.
So this is an experience.
It's a whole experience.
Okay.
It's a complete experience. And we're still, I'm not even anywhere near where I want to be. Like this is a great place where we have, and we have this cottage now. It's a 1929 built house, and it's beautiful and it's earthy, and it hits that.
And that's your headquarters?
That's our headquarters. That's where we get to do all our training. But I think about I actually want to build out like a place that is like a spa, but instead of your massage rooms, we have training rooms, where you have self-defense mats. We're doing a lot of really fun stuff. So that was like the vision on how do I create this journey for women and families, everyday people, the people that don't, the husbands and the couples that they don't come from the tactical background. They don't come from law enforcement or military, but they want to protect their families too.
Do you see a turn off in men trying to be trained by a woman? Have you run any of that yet?
So we haven't really tested the market with men so much.
You're focused mainly on women.
We're focused on women, and we got a lot of backlash when we started doing this in the community, and a lot of
Why? What's besides obviously jealousy or you're competing now against somebody, what would be the negative you focus on helping women either physically, mentally, spiritually, whatever, train and get?
The only thing that I can think of on the woman's side is taking food off somebody else's table, right? Because there's a huge market. With men, we were told we're not allowed to train men. If you start training men, it's going to cause an issue, a rift. And that was really hard to battle through because it was hard watching male instructors doing women's only classes and co-ed classes. So men get to train everybody.
But women can't.
I'm only allowed to do women's classes. But if I do a co-ed class, well, now we're crossing hairs now. Now I'm going into your territory.
Okay, so it's just a food off the table situation.
I'll still never fully understand where and how it comes from, because you're never going to see me do a men's only class. Could you imagine me trying to do a men's only class? Why would I do that? I can't even wrap my head. What's the purpose? Why? First of all, why would I seclude women to not be able to come to it?
For sure.
There's that part of it.
For sure.
Men will do women's only everything all the time. Women's only self-defense, women's only boxing, and it's all taught by men. But you never see a woman do a men's only class on anything. Maybe if it was dating, maybe if you're a dating coach, I could try to think of that. But I still can't fathom any other reasons. So then we get this mark put on us. You can't teach any men, and if you do, we're gonna have an issue. And that made it really uncomfortable. And I definitely felt like I was walking on eggshells for a while. So we didn't want the war, because I don't believe in that. I believe in the unity of the 2A community. And I believe that at the end of the day, it's about our community. It's not about the competitor. And I don't care what my competitors are doing. Our job is to make our community safer.
Yeah.
If you have a problem with us making our community safer, that's a you problem, and that's not a me problem. And that was hard. And, you know, since conversations have been had and those people are, you know, now moving into doing women's only classes when, you know, there was this agreement, like, you won't do this and we won't do this. And now it's a free for all and everyone's doing whatever the fuck they want to do out here anyway.
Yeah.
And I just stopped caring. If you want to do women's only classes, go do it. If women want to go to you and they want to learn from somebody like you, then more power to them. I'm just glad that the women are getting trained.
Yeah.
That is all I care about at the end of the day.
That's
As
what it
long
should
as you're training them safely and properly, and if they have a great experience with you, fantastic. We are a specific demographic. We love teaching women who are brand new.
I feel it's just it's like you go to the gym and, you know, it's like you see a woman walking for the first time and it's like, I mean, I go to certain gyms and like the gym here I went to when I first started going there, some of those chicks were giant and I was like picking up my weights like, you know, so I could feel
it's
how
a good example, the gym.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And, you know, and so I feel that it's a great thing that you're providing for a safe, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for, a safe space, but like you can just relax and not have to worry about some tactical Dan doing his stupid fucking drills that he's never used in his life.
And just do it. I mean, and I've had like women who come to me who have experienced other instructors and other ranges, and the stories that I hear from them, I'm like, he said what? And it's, you know, we have a living room and it's really great, and I call it the couch. And like people come and they sit down on the couch, and man, we should have done this podcast over there, because you just sit on the couch and people just want to talk, and we have these great conversations, and like I just hear these things and I'm just like, how are these people surviving out here? Like, how can you ethically be okay teaching what you're teaching?
I think a lot of them, they've just been doing it for so long, they don't even realize that it's like the times have evolved, you know. That's a pretty cool thing, though. I mean, so the spiritual side of things, obviously you brought up being, you know, being a Christian or religious. And so are you bringing that into some sort of aspects? I mean, are you helping women? You've been through a lot. There's been a lot of hurdles in your life. Are you bringing any of that into for these women that are able to have a place to be able to learn and train and how to cope or deal with any of these things as well? So,
absolutely.
So you're not just a firearms instructor or a platform for that. You're offering...
Yeah, I say it a lot. It's not just about the gun. Like, we don't want Athena to be about the gun. Athena really is...
What's Athena? Where did all this come from?
Athena was...
Sorry, and we'll get back on it.
No, yeah, it's just an icon. Athena was the goddess of warfare, intelligence, battle, strategy. It's not about, like, worshiping a god or a goddess, but she's just such a strong icon for what we want to teach women and to represent, that we're going to teach you on that strategy, that intelligence, that warfare, that battle for life. That's why it's Athena tactics. It's teaching you the tactics of life to protect yourself on all levels. It's not just about the firearm. It's not about the gun.
Yeah.
It's about all of those areas. And yes, it's the coping. It's giving women the confidence to go out and live their lives the way God designed them to, in their best selves. For the women who had their voice taken from them from bad relationships, women who
you're working with those types of women?
Yeah, who were silenced for so long. And I mean, even as simple as we have like a judgment training scenario, right, where you have to, it's a video that plays out, and maybe it's your vehicle getting robbed or somebody breaking into your apartment, and you're watching this play out, and you have a gun or a less than lethal tool. And teaching women to use their voice, just yelling at the screen. It's
crazy how many people
can't do it and don't know how to do it. Yeah, they freeze. We're not even in a high stress situation. I'm playing this scenario out, and they just men too. It's not just women.
For sure.
They go on it and they just stare at the screen and they don't know what to do. And then they get in this. They start second guessing themselves and it's so hard to watch. It's uncomfortable to use your voice. Literally just teaching women how to use their voice. And it is a journey.
The most powerful weapon you have.
And it takes session, and then finally they're on it. And like, use your voice, de-escalate the situation. Don't use your gun. It's not about teaching somebody to like take someone's life. It's teaching you to keep your own life.
I mean, I feel that's a huge misrepresented thing in the gun world, is that I'm going to carry this gun to take someone's life.
Yeah.
That is the absolute last. I mean, when I carry, that's the last thing I wanted. I mean, I got into a fight with a guy a few years back. He pulled a gun on me. I dove on him, disarmed him. I mean, I had all the right in the world to kill this dude. And like it processed, I'm like, well, I already have. Once I disarmed him, I mean, he drew, and I mean, he fucking was drawn on, and I dove on him,
Jeez, yeah.
controlled the wrist, rolled it out. My wife's standing right on the other side of him.
Gosh.
And I throw the gun. I look her dead in her eyes. I'm like, get the fucking gun.
Yeah.
So I knew, and as soon as I saw her going, that's when I commenced to beating this dude's ass. But like I had like that, it flashed like, fuck, I do not want to kill this dude. Like, but I had all the right in the world.
But that's not the outcome that we actually want.
That's not the outcome that you
right.
want. It's it's a nightmare, and you don't want to be tied up in that court case for however long. But
equip you with everything to prevent that moment.
Exactly.
But God forbid you don't have any other
That it
options. You're
escalates
somebody
to
who's
that.
110 pounds and
Yep.
can't dive on somebody and disarm them, maybe. Can you handle yourself?
Mm-hmm.
In a informed way? Are you going to be in the situation, and then are you going to be so fearful for what just happened that now you're questioning everything you did, and you're emotionally processing to everybody, and you're just talking, and now you're getting yourself into legal trouble because of how you handled the situation after the fact? Well, how did you communicate with law enforcement?
You shut the
You
fuck
shut up.
up.
1,000%. But now we want to call our spouse, or we say, did you say, oh my God, this whole, and you start talking to witnesses, and witnesses are asking you questions, and guess what? Everyone's going to get interviewed. And now you just got yourself into trouble, even though you did everything right in the world. And now because of how you handled it after the fact. Why aren't we having those conversations? Those
That's
are the
pretty
things
cool.
that we educate on.
Good for you for doing that.
Thank you. It's the post-incident response part. It's that I want you to be capable of doing what you need to do, whether it's preventing or it's during, but also I want you to have the confidence and the knowledge on how to handle the situation after the facts, because we don't want you being fearful and having anxiety that you're going to spend the rest of your life in jail or you're going to lose your home.
Which I feel is a lot of times people don't resort to that last bit because I'm going to go to jail, and they end up losing their life because they fear, even though they have a firearm, they fear to use it due to the repercussions. I mean, the cops, when I had to deal with my situation, they're like, he spit on you? I'm like, do spit on me before I put hands on him. And they're like, oh, you have all the right in the world to defend yourself here in Idaho.
Yeah.
That's considered
Yeah.
a threat. And they're like, you could have done, they're like, you handled the situation
Thank God.
perfectly,
Yeah.
but they're like, you could have escalated it much more. And the cops were like, you had all the right in the world. I mean, my whole situation, I was like, fuck. Like,
And unfortunately, that's not every state. We
no.
live in such a great state.
Which is important for these women, because especially with how many transplants are coming here and how many meat people are moving from liberal states, unfortunately.
States where they weren't allowed to have firearms, or
they don't know their own rights.
Taught, that they can't. And it's, and that's why I say it's not even just about the women, it's the couple. And this is where men do come in the picture. Like, no, we're not out here heavily trying to teach men. There's 117 firearms instructors in the Valley. Like, you got a sea of options. If you want to learn the way that we're teaching our methodologies, the science side of the house, the way that we go through our structure, and the concept of teaching the cohesive unit and teaching you how to work together as a family and as a partnership, and understand that, his role and responsibility and her role and responsibility, that's what we love to do. We love to bring couples together. We love to bring families together and allow you the space, the safe space to talk these things out. And we have that with some of our couples. We have some amazing couples we get to work with, and we've seen it, the dynamic where, she is more on alert and worrying more about the doors being locked and making sure the house is secure, and where he's actually just pretty chill. And then he gets annoyed that she's so high alert all the time and jumpy and more scared and fearful because she's been in a traumatizing situation, and he can't fully understand why she's reacting that way.
So you're bridging a lot of gaps.
I get to bridge the gap where I get to give him insight into her traumas and her experiences, and why it's important for him to handle things, maybe a little differently, and vice versa. I get to offer, her insight to where he's coming from, and then watch them meet in the middle on their safety and their personal protection in their lives and their homes is literally such an amazing thing.
And on top of that, you're able to share, I don't know how in depth you're sharing your experiences, but you're able to relate and help them traverse this path, because especially from a woman's side, you've been through everything. So it's probably pretty beneficial for them to be able to see somebody or come to somebody like you, because I feel like if they threw any scenario at you.
And that's where my why came into place. For a long time, I really struggled with why I had experienced as much pain as I have, and why these things, bad things, kept happening and happening and happening. When can I just catch a break? When am I just going to have room to breathe? When am I ever just going to be loved for, who I am and not all of these other things? And it was a couple months ago, and I'd really still been struggling with, I know the moment when God gave me the vision for Athena and told me that this is what he wanted me to do. He was calling me to this. And I fought it. I didn't want to do it. Nope. I'm going to do something else. I'm not equipped for this. I don't feel like this is what I'm supposed to do with my life. And he fought me on it day in, day out. And finally I was like, okay, I will do it. And I prayed on it and prayed on it. And he kept opening the doors for Athena to come to fruition. And these things, amazing testimonies have happened in how we have gotten to where we are now.
Yeah.
But it has been so hard. Paying the bills in a business to do something like this is so hard. I hate charging women to teach them how to protect themselves. I hate when a woman comes to me and says, I was just brutally assaulted or raped, and I'm scared I can't go home. Can you help me? If I could do this for free all day, I absolutely would, right? But there's the level of I need to provide for my family, and we want to build something more for women. The why, I had somebody come in a couple months ago, and we were talking, and she was sharing with me her experiences, and she said, Amanda, normally when I talk to people, about this, they can sympathize. I'm sorry you went through that. She said, but you're the first person I've ever talked to about this where I actually feel like you see me and you get me and you feel what I've felt. And she's like, I haven't.
Which is what you want, though.
Yeah, I haven't had that from somebody. And that was when my why got answered. I realized in that moment that had I not gone through almost everything under the sun,
all the trials and tribulations,
all of it, that I would not be equipped to work with the women that I get to work with now in Athena. And we're, a year and a half ago, I had sat there and said, God, I'm not equipped to do this. Really, he had been equipping me my entire life. That's why I ended up at the agency. That's why I ended up in the career field. I ended up to learn the skill sets that I now have to be able to carry over. That's why I went through the trialing and traumatic experiences, and I had to go through the failures, and I had to go through the freeze response time and time again to understand how to not be in the freeze response. Because how can I teach somebody not to go into freeze? And how do I teach them to be in fight or flight had I not experienced those things myself? How could I possibly sit across from somebody and relate to them and understand and put myself in their shoes and help them move forward from those things and heal from those things while giving them and leveraging the skill sets and the knowledge and everything that I've gone through in life and passing that over had I not gone through everything. And that was my why. And that was why I wake up every day and keep doing this. And I deal with the men in the industry who don't want us to disrupt it. We're changing the way that instruction is given. I'm rewriting curriculums, and people don't like it because they have to adjust and they have to deal with those consequences. And yeah, I guess you could say we're taking food off their table. It's not an easy thing to wake up and do. And there's days every day that I'm like, why are we still fighting so many battles if this is what, God, if this is what you're calling us to do? Like, why are we, we can't pay our bills. We're day to day. Like, business is not easy. We don't do this to, get rich. Nobody goes into this to make a lot of money. And you get those people that, this is just too expensive. And it's like women can pay to get their hair done, their nails done, do all these things all day of the week. But to take, to enter into a program to learn how to defend yourself and your family, well, now that's a luxury. Yeah. And we can't afford that. Isn't that
weird how the mindset works? You'll buy a $12 Starbucks. I don't know what a Starbucks drink costs, but you'll buy one every single day.
Yeah, you'll go out for the weekend and blow a couple $100s on alcohol and drinking, but you won't do that to take a class with you and your wife or you and your husband or your kids, so that way you can be more prepared.
Speaking of kids, how young do you take in?
I tell parents that when your child is physically capable of touching, holding a gun in any fashion, whether it's a Nerf gun, a water gun, a toy, you should be introducing firearm safety.
100%.
It doesn't mean like that your kid needs to be a competitive shooter.
Well, I'm talking as far as in the fact of like if I wanted to send my kids to your
Yeah.
class and to train them, because I just sometimes don't have the patience to.
Yeah. Do it. Yeah. We have a family program that we
Okay.
came out with. And it's like a once a month for you and your, 2 adults and 2 kids under the age of 18 to come together. So that way we're all learning the same thing at the same page. We're getting on the same page and we're understanding like that family dynamic. I do think that parents should be involved in the process because you
for
want to know what your kids are learning. But as soon as if you have guns in the home, as soon as your child is physically able, they can touch that gun, they can pick it up, they can do anything with it, we should be introducing. And it doesn't, people say, well, they can't fully talk yet. Kids are smart. They're
They watch
seeing,
everything.
they watch, they're absorbing. And even if you start teaching them the 4 main firearm safety rules, at 1.5, 2 years old, they're still absorbing that information.
For sure.
They're getting it. So yeah, that's what I tell parents, and I get parents who are like, oh, I don't want them to know these things because I don't want them to think that, they're confident and they can go out and now they can go play with guns. Okay, well, it's, there's a multitude of things going here. It's how we're introducing and how we're teaching them, but they're either going to learn the right way or they're going to go out and they're going to learn the wrong way.
Well, and you also have the taboo aspect when it's it's dad's guns in the closet, or it's like he keeps it up in the shelf. That's where I feel most of these kids that are having accidents in the home and stuff, it's because it's a taboo. Don't and
They
I
get curious.
like I grew up hunting outdoor family, so there was a gun in every corner and it was nothing. And same with all my buddies, like I could have my friends over, it wasn't like, hey, I want to go look at your dad's gun. It was just like we'd grab a shotgun and go shoot birds in the backyard when my parents were gone. So I thought it was really important for when my kids were young, like there was guns, not everywhere, like nothing was loaded, but there's like right now I have a gun in my desk, there's guns everywhere in our house. And especially pistols are extremely dangerous because it's so easy to flag somebody or yourself, and it's much harder with a long gun. But I've never, obviously if we're leaving our kids alone, I'd never leave my kids with friends, anything like that with firearms out. But it's for them, I never wanted it to be a taboo topic in our home. We're like, oh, dad's gone, let's go look at it. Hey, if your girls ever want, let's go. Just ask, and it's yours. You want to check it out? Like whenever I get a new gun, obviously it being clear, I'm like, here you go, girl. And I hand it straight. Thing I do is hand it to the girls. We want to look. They're older, much older now, but it's something new. It's shiny, and they want to touch it, and that's when accidents happen. But I feel there's this. I don't know the statistics, but like for kids that have grown up with a firearm, it's just like.
They're way more confident. It's a part of their normal life.
It's like the plate sitting on the table. Like you look at it, and you don't even acknowledge that it's there. And so I feel like that's a very good point. I mean, if kids are playing with toy guns,
if
they see a real one,
right? Whatever. If you introduce Nerf into your family and they have like in your home Nerf guns and that kind of stuff, it's like, okay, well, this is a great opportunity to train. This is your safe down range. We don't shoot the cat. We don't shoot the dog. We don't shoot each other. We don't shoot mom in the face, right? Like it's a toy, but it's not a toy. Set up a little training range for them.
Yeah.
Teach them the proper safety and handling of that silly little Nerf gun, and start introducing it to them in a fun but safe manner, and help them understand like how dangerous guns can be. But we don't have to do it in a way that they're so fearful that now they're just bad things are gonna end up happening, or they go to somebody's house, and then now if you don't do it, someone's gonna do it.
For
School, someone else, somebody. Oh, well, my kids don't go to other people's houses. Okay, well, for how long?
Yeah.
At what point in life?
Can't shelter them forever.
Right, you can't shelter them forever. Absolutely. So, yeah, if people want to bring kids to us, we'll teach kids all day. We try to. We have our simulator that we use because we teach. I probably should have said this before. We teach women and families in a safe, controlled environment with training guns on a simulator before we ever take anybody to the range.
Okay, cool.
So like that has some we call them games. Really, they're training exercises and drills, but they're formulated for kids to where they're still learning proper gun safety and handling.
Make it entertaining.
But they make it entertaining, right? Because kids have a short, attention span. And we do that a lot in the methodologies on how we introduce firearms. So that way, when we get out to the range, we are way more confident with our safety and our handling. And I use the example is the flinch response. We see that a lot, especially with new shooters. When you first started shooting, you kind of like you flinch away from the gun every time. And I try to explain this in the sense, if I go to punch you in the face, like unexpectedly, you're going to flinch. It's your body's system of trying to protect you. Your nervous system is identifying that there's a danger or a threat, and it's trying to remove you from the situation, right?
I mean, technically, you get a little mini explosion going off in your hand, so
Exactly.
you should it should be a natural response at first.
Exactly. So how do we change that response? It's going to be there for a little bit, but we can take as much away from that stress and that stimulus as possible and do it in a safe, controlled environment. So when we get out to the range, we see less of that. And then we do like, it's almost like it's exposure therapy.
Yeah.
That we know shooting a gun is a traumatizing experience to the body. Whether it's your first time shooting a gun or your 20th time, depending on what that experience has been, it is traumatizing. It's not normal. There's nothing that we do in normal life that mimics shooting a gun. From the fine motor skills, the ligaments, like the muscle memory, the way that our muscles and body move together.
Holding it.
Right, holding it
I
to
mean, where
make
is that
that
a natural position?
Exactly, it's not. Trigger control, right? How you press through that trigger. All of these things are not natural. So we do a lot on that science side of equipping the body. And I tell people, like, I'm not necessarily training you, I'm training your nervous system. This program that you're going to go through is training your nervous system. And if we train the nervous system appropriately, it doesn't necessarily matter if it's a gun or it's something else. We're training the result. We're training for the outcome that we want your body to do when your brain gets that chemical flood of fight, flight, or freeze, whether it's almost getting into a car accident or it's somebody scaring you or so one of those little things happening. And it's how do we override that so that way we can keep moving, get off the X, whatever that is. And that's what we train for.
Good for you for offering that.
Thank you.
That's a pretty cool thing. I think it's going to be extremely beneficial to a lot of women and young women too, especially not just, the firearms is such an important thing, but I feel that everything else that you're offering inside of the program, that's where you're going to see a lot of either lives changed or lives saved, and women waking up and, being able to hear from your testimony that, hey, I've accomplished this, and this is what's happened to me. It can happen to anybody.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's a lot of platforms or places. I'm sure there is, but obviously it's not the world that I'm involved in, but it's cool that you're offering that for women in general, and couples to be able to come together like that. I got a question for you kind of before we wrap things up. Everything that you've gone through over your life, is there any advice that you would give to young women or women in general that are going through some shitty situations?
Yeah, I think there's two immediate things that come to mind, and one's a little cliche, and it's the trust your instincts. My instincts have never failed me. I was in situations and I knew things before they happened, and I didn't know how to listen to them.
How do you learn to listen before you're 5, 6, 7 years or incidences down the road?
I think listening to those instincts is one of those learned behaviors where you have to lean into it and then watch for yourself how things unfold. It's kind of like trusting the process of trusting your body, and that when you see it and feel it. And what's hard about learning to trust your instincts is that a lot of times you will never know what the outcome was going to be. Your instincts told you not to get off the elevator, go up to the next floor. So you listen and you go up to the next floor. You don't know what you just avoided. And I think that's the hardest part is we want validation. We want instant gratification in the decisions that we make, and having the discipline to be okay with not getting that instant gratification or getting that validation has to be good enough for you. Knowing that you are still safe and you get to wake up another day on this earth, that's your validation. And the other part is no matter how hard things feel and how much it seems like there's no light at the end of the tunnel, there is. And it's you hear that a lot, But every situation I found myself in, what kept me going, because there were times where I felt like, what's the point in living anymore? What's the point in being here anymore? But I believed in myself enough, or I tried to know that I can recreate the narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And you may be in a relationship where he is, paying the bills and you're financially dependent on somebody, and maybe you're not working and you have 2 kids at home and you don't know how you're going to provide for them. And it's really scary to walk away because you've been so dependent on somebody for so long. You can't fathom being self-reliant. But there are people and there are resources out there that you can become self-reliant. Like you can create this world for yourself, and it will take hard work, but you have to want it bad enough for yourself. You can always recreate the narrative. And I think that's the hardest thing, is we get stuck in situations, or we get stuck in jobs that we're unhappy, or we're put down, or we're used and abused and taken advantage of, and we feel like, well, where else am I going to go? Who else am I going to work for? Who else is going to love me? Who else am I going to be in a relationship with? And we downplay ourselves and ourself and our worth, and we give our identity over to that person, or we give our identity over to that job, and we lose that. But your identity is not rooted in those things.
For sure.
And if there's one takeaway, like when your identity is rooted in Christ, and you know that you're whole in Him, and that Christ died for our sins to give you the opportunity to live this life, you know that no matter what happens to you, He will always be there to pick you up. Every step of the way, I can look back on the things that I went through and see how God got me through it. He sent me these little lifelines, but you have to know how to lean into them and look for them and trust them when they're in front of you.
That's what it comes down to, is knowing it and trusting it.
Yeah, trust His will for you, trust His plans for you. That was what saved my life. I wasn't always saved, and it was a critical point in my life when I gave my life to Jesus. Mm-hmm. And when you know having Him versus not having Christ in your life, it is a night and day difference.
Right.
And I could never imagine going back to living a life without Christ. Not in a million years. And when you feel that, and you feel that love, and you feel your identity rooted in Him, and knowing that my identity has nothing to do with my performance, or how much money I make, or how my peers view me, or how many followers I have on social media, or any of those things, I wake up every day and I know that I'm living for Him. Yeah. And I'm so grateful, and I give all the glory back to Him every single day, and I trust Him with everything. And when I listen to Him, amazing things happen. And when I try to control it for myself, I get myself into trouble. Mm-hmm. And when you start surrendering, that is when your life changes. I knew that He told me I needed to move here. I knew that He told me I needed to get divorced. I knew that He told me He was saving me from different things. He's the one who led me to where I'm at now. And I consult Him on everything.
Have to.
It's that very specific prayer. I consult Him on everything that I do every single day. And I say, okay, I don't like this.
Dangerous prayers.
This is uncomfortable. This makes me really sad. This sucks. But every time it hurt and I listened to Him, the outcome was far greater than I ever could have imagined. And He brought me people in my life. He removes people and brings you people that are meant to be there, mm-hmm. and removes the ones that aren't. And that's the biggest change.
Good for you. That's incredible.
Thank you.
Kicking ass.
We're doing our best every day.
Right. So if people want to get a hold of you, women want to reach out to you, maybe they just want to talk or get advice or book a class, and they could bring their kids and husbands that aren't familiar with it. How do we get a hold of you? We'll obviously link everything, but for anybody listening.
Yeah. You can text me. Like, I don't even care. Like, just text me, call me. Come by our facility. I don't care what hour of the day it is. I tell all my clients too, and women in classes, if you're in a situation where you feel unsafe or uneasy, or you're just not sure, you need somebody to call, because you just need somebody to pick up to show that you're, not alone. Call me, 208. Call me or text me.
We might blur that out.
You can find
I don't know if I want to promote the phone numbers. Social medias we're cool with. They could reach out to you. They're there.
Yeah, or social media, website, email. whatever, pigeon carrier. I don't really care.
Cool. No, I appreciate you coming on and sharing some vulnerable places that you've been in your life and to where you've come now. I'm glad we finally got to sit down, and
Yeah, me too.
even though you didn't answer any of my messages, you blew me off for a while.
I don't think that was me.
100%. So, well, thank you very much. I
you for
enjoyed
having
this. It was a lot of fun.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Next time.